All right. All right. Good evening, everybody. It is, if you can believe it, October 3, 5:31 p.m. Bringing this meeting of the Pacific Grove Unified School District Board of Trustees to order. Before we go any further, it's important for us to pay respect and acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Ohlone, Costanoan, and Esalen people, and additionally pay respect to elders both past and present. Can we get a roll call, please?
President Swanson.
Present.
Clerk Dr. Hazen.
Here.
Trustee Ottmar. Here. Trustee McNary.
Here.
Trustee Swanson.
Here.
Awesome. All right. So we are all here. Moving on to the agenda. It should be seen both online and I know it's available in the lobby. Looking for any public comment on the agenda as it is presented this evening. I'm not seeing anybody in the room and there's nobody online. So let's move to the board. Is there any comment on the agenda?
I do need to make an adjustment, President Swanson, and I am proposing we need to pull item J this evening on consent.
That was J on consent.
And when you say pull, do you mean pull to the main or do you mean remove?
We're removing it, correct. Thank you. Yes, thanks for clarifying that. But item J, just removing it for this evening off the agenda.
All right. Any other changes to the agenda, board? Okay, so knowing that, looking for approval of the agenda with the removal of consent item J. Can we get a motion on that?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from trustee McNary and a second from trustee Ottmar. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Now moving on to closed session. We have 5 items. One is negotiations with PGTA. The second is collective bargaining with CSEA. Third, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, leave, complaint. I got through that without mispronouncing any of those. Number 4, liability claim, government code 54956.95. And the 5th, anticipated litigation, again, government code 54956.9. Is there any public comment on closed session topics? Seeing nobody online and nobody in the room, we're going to adjourn to closed session. Thanks, everybody. Buddy, thanks for because we're a little bit late. Not too late. Wow, look at that room. That's amazing. That's amazing. It's so nice to be here tonight and to see such a packed room here too. We're coming back from closed session. Reporting out on item number 1, information was shared. Item number 2, also information shared. Same with 3. And then item number 4, liability claim, government code section 54956.95. Board voted 5-0 to reject the claim identified during closed session. And then again on the 5th item, information was shared. So now moving onward to Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Serpa, would you be so kind tonight and lead us in the pledge? I'm sorry, I usually give you somebody a heads up, but yes, if you could, the flag is right over here. To the flag of the United States of America. Justice for all.
It's the best pledge.
I know, right?
I think you're right. It's like that, I think was the most amazing Pledge of Allegiance that I've ever heard. So thank you. Thanks for leading us through that. So now we're moving on to I think one of the reasons why we have this packed room here tonight. So Forest Grove Elementary and Ocean Guardian School Award, Ms. Serpa, it's all yours.
Yes, I think I'm gonna do the introductions and officially introduce Mrs. Serpa and our students here this evening. So I agree, President Swanson, what a delight to have this room filled. We got to see a little bit of our fourth and fifth graders as we visited today with Dr. Geis, and got a little bit of they preempted us a little with some of the things they're going to say. So we're thrilled. But yes, the reason for the full room this evening is Forest Grove Elementary just completed their first year as part of NOAA's Ocean Guardian School Program. Thank you, Ms. Serpa. The Ocean Guardian Program encourages students to become advocates for the ocean and practice the 6 R's. Do you want to say them with me, fourth and fifth graders? Refuse, rethink, reduce, reuse, recycle. And okay, I had rotate and recycle around, but that's okay. You've probably got it right. There are many adults and students responsible for this event and for this project, which you're going to hear from a lot this evening. But it is my pleasure at this time. We have someone with us this evening who I'd like to just take a quick moment to introduce first. It is Seaberry Nashbar, and she is, if she would come up to, I'm just going to share a little bit of information before you hear from her. She has worked for NOAA for more than 20 years. She's currently with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, that's NOAA, Office of National Marine Sanctuaries in Monterey, where she serves as an educational coordinator. She developed and directs the NOAA Bay Watershed Education and Training Program, providing students and teachers the opportunity to connect with their environment through hands-on, inquiry-based activities aligned with state standards. She also developed and directs the NOAA Ocean Guardian School Program to encourage changes in environmental practices in schools and communities. Seaberry serves on a number of committees and boards within and outside of the federal government, including a current Carmel Unified School Governing Board member. Wow. And yes, we're lucky enough to have her here with us this evening. So it's my pleasure to introduce you and welcome you here this evening.
Thank you very much. First of all, are there any ocean guardians in the house? Well, I am thrilled to be here. Yes, my name is Seaberry, and I'm very lucky that I love the ocean. I love to be in the sea. And I run the NOAA Ocean Guardian School Program. I'm very proud to run this program. It's a program that is all over the country. We're in almost every single state, coastal state in the country, and we're also in U.S. territories all over the world. And we work with many, many students and teachers. And the idea is that working with students, we provide you an opportunity to make a difference in your environment. And I know that sometimes there's a lot of environmental stuff that's going on and you don't know what to do about it, but you guys are doing something about it. So thank you for taking that step. I know that you just completed your first year and you received your Ocean Guardian School banner. Yay. And you're on to your second year. And in 2011, PG Unified actually was an Ocean Guardian school, PG Middle School. They were an Ocean Guardian school. And it's been since 2011 since we've had an Ocean Guardian school in PG Unified. So congratulations for starting that off as well. And way back when, PG Middle decided that they were going to do reduce, reuse, recycle, rot, refuse, rethink. And they actually took on a project to propose getting rid of helium and latex balloons. And they actually went to, and let me tell you a little story about this. So PG Middle, what they decided to do was do beach cleanups. And so they would walk down almost every week to to Lovers Point. You guys know all where Lovers Point is? And they worked very hard to do a beach cleanup. They actually adopted that beach down there to do the beach cleanup. And then they got invited to go to Good Old Days and host a little table there to talk about the project that they were doing. And while they were at Good Old Days, they saw this big balloon arch that was tied to the entrance of the Good Old Days. And a big wind came in and it swept the whole arch away. And the next week, they actually found that balloon arch on the beach they've been cleaning up. And they said, wait a minute here. We're doing all this hard work to clean up our local beach, and PG, Pacific Grove, is still allowing these plastic balloons to escape and go to our beach that we've just been cleaning up. So what they decided to do was have a ban on balloons. And so they went to their board and they requested that the board actually adopt a policy to eliminate mylar and latex balloons. And the board agreed. And then they also went to Pacific Grove City Council and they said, will you consider eliminating balloons at your public events? And they said yes. And so it would be great to see that happen again. So good job for taking that on, for being an Ocean Guardian school. And thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to be part of this. And you're always welcome to call me anytime or email me if you ever have any questions at all about the ocean and about protecting the ocean. So thanks very much. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
You as well. Thank you for being here this evening. This is very. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ms. Serpa and Principal Arbin to the front, but Ms. Serpa, why don't you go ahead and then introduce the video? I know we had planned it differently, but
Okay.
you're going to have some great things
All
to
right.
say about it. So
Okay,
yes,
I'll give
indeed.
it a shot here. Thank you all for coming. First, families, students. Okay, the NOAA Ocean Guardian School program starts with students and is designed to get them out of the classroom and involved in issues affecting their community and the health of the ocean. As part of our year one program, students engaged in stewardship activities on campus, such as trash cleanups, zero waste lunch, and presenting educational information to all classrooms on the 6 R's: rethink, refuse, reduce, reuse, rot, and recycle. Through our students' actions, we have brought about changes at the school site level, as well as hopefully changes in their homes. Our year two grant expands our successes of last year, including raising student, family, and community awareness via classroom presentations, art contests, and field trips, all the while collecting measurable data, building capacity, because many of our 5th graders are part of an Ocean Guardian lunch club now, and they're working with our 4th graders as mentors on their presentations, and focusing on community outreach. So thank you for letting that start tonight, because here they are advocating. That's amazing. Our objective is to protect the ocean by reducing waste and single-use plastics. 10 million tons of plastic are dumped into our oceans annually. That is equal to more than a garbage truck load every single minute. So I think those numbers speak for themselves. We need ocean guardians to make waves and be the change they want to see in the world. I'm so proud of their efforts. We absolutely couldn't have done this work without the support of the whole school, specifically Dr. Pelk and Cherie in the cafeteria, our amazing maintenance team for installing the storm drain catch and the filtration system and accommodating all of our busing and field trip needs. Mr. Silvera's enthusiasm and efforts for eliminating waste in the cafeteria. There he is. Mr. Bradley for making the really cool video that you are about to see. The creative parents who are managing our upcoming recycled art contest. Carrie and Angela for taking care of all the moving fiscal parts. Our teachers especially for allowing a multitude of presentations in their classrooms. And our 4th grade team, Miss D, who will not come over here. Yay, Miss D. Mrs. Woods, Mr. Russo for all of their involvement, and Mr. Jorn, who got us up and running and believed in us 2 years ago when we wanted to start this. Thank you all so much for your support. And I have a bunch of students who want to tell you their favorite parts about being Ocean Guardians, but I think we're going to roll the film first, right? Okay, thank you so much for listening.
Here as an ocean guardian, they become advocates for the ocean and help reduce the use of single-use plastics on campus.
have done trash pickup and have presented in classrooms. I know, at least for me, I am proud to be an ocean guardian. We have had a big breakthrough. And we are here to clean up the ocean. You might be wondering what an ocean guardian does. We protect our sea animals and our ocean from trash, plastic. Because imagine if you were a sea turtle. You would eat jellyfish, but then you see a plastic bag and eat it because it looked like it. It's called Zero Waste Lunch. What we did is we went around to the classrooms and we challenged kids to bring lunches with no trash and that they could only recycle or compost. We changed our school for the better. It's fun doing Ocean Guardians, and I feel like it's made a big difference. Our whole school has learned a lot, whether we're on the beach or at school or anywhere. It's amazing to pick up trash because it helps, and it helps ocean animals not die. And I mean, knowing that one piece of trash could kill a sea turtle breaks my heart. Pick up trash, recycle, and reuse. I enjoyed seeing smiles around the playground as children clean up plastic. Thank you, Ocean Guardians, for this amazing.
Students are empowered to create change on campus, at home, and in our community. And we have the Ocean Guardian grant to thank.
Come on up. I think we have some people who want to speak. Are you ready? Yeah.
Hi, I am Danny, and what I like about being an ocean guardian, um, is helping sea animals. Mm.
Good job, Danny. Nice job, Danny.
Hi, my name is Arya, and being an ocean guardian means we get to protect the ocean, and it is right down the street. I love making that kind of difference in my community. Hello.
Do it. I think
Hello, my name is Dean. I believe in the Ocean Guardian program because I know I need to be the change I want to see in the world. Hi, my name is Delilah. My favorite thing about being an ocean guardian is participating in the Recycled Natural Items Art Contest. I made a painting last year with recycled items. Ocean Guardians are so fun. Hi, my name is Ivy. I love being an ocean guardian, and I hope I can make a difference by picking up trash and reusing plastic, not throwing it away. I will also bring my own bag instead of using a plastic one.
Guys are doing great.
Hi, my name is Liberty, and I'm in fifth grade. And what I enjoy about Ocean Guardians is I can make a big difference even if I pick up like 3 pieces of trash each day. Hi, my name is Hannah, and I'm in fifth grade. Being an ocean guardian means setting a good example at school and at home. I have changed a lot of habits to help eliminate single-use plastics. Hi, my name is Radhika, and I am excited to mentor the fourth graders as we enter the second year of the Ocean Guardian program. One of my favorite parts of last year was presenting to all the different classes at Forest Grove. I think that the Ocean Guardian program will help people clean beaches and take more care of the environment. Last year in fourth grade, I had an awesome time doing Ocean Guardians, and I hope I will have an amazing time doing it this year too. Hello, my name is Abby. I am in fifth grade and a student at Forest Grove. Last year, I learned a lot about the ocean thanks to Ocean Guardians. My favorite part about the trash was the trash art contest. I created a diorama of a blobfish using recycled materials. It was selected to be displayed in the district office. Thank you so much for supporting this program. Hi, my name is Bella. I'm looking forward to working on community outreach this year. I hope we can make a difference by encouraging people to help ocean guardians become stronger and to use reusable things. As you all know, plastic is very bad for our oceans, so we are trying to encourage people to use reusable things, and we all hope we can grow a stronger community. It's time to protect the ocean. Hello, my name is Iris, and I'm in fifth grade in Miss Condit's class. Our Ocean Guardian grant has funded several presentations for us. I learned so much from the Save the Whales presentations. Did you know that all the rain ends up in the storm drain and all of that storm drains lead to the ocean? Hi, my name is Aubrey, and for me, being an ocean guardian means saving all the animals in the ocean and making a change in our community. Hi, my name is Ezra, and I'm in fourth grade. To me, being an ocean guardian means teaching younger kids to take care of the ocean so animals, the earth, and people can stay healthy. Uh, my name is Victoria, and what I'm looking forward to in Ocean Guardian program is that I can help the ocean animals and people. Hi, my name is Camila, and I'm in fifth grade. One of the reasons I love Ocean Guardians is because it teaches kids to use less plastic and to not let the trash go down the storm drain. Instead, it teaches kids to throw away trash so it doesn't end up in a harm an animal. Hi, my name is Ellie, and I'm in fifth grade. I love the Ocean Guardians and all the field trips we go on because they're so informative. I loved the aquarium with all its interesting marine life. Hi, my name is Vanessa, and I love being an ocean guardian because we can do zero waste lunch. This made me stop and think about all the waste I could eliminate if I used a reusable container instead of plastic bags. We can save one sea turtle at a time.
Last but not least.
Hi, my name is Caprice. What I love about being an ocean guardian is how I get to help animals by doing something at our school called a trash pick. And what's that, you might ask? Well, it's a simple thing if you ask me. All it is picking up as much trash as you can during a certain period of time. It may sound little, but it's a big help to our ocean friends. They really do need it. Hearing facts about how to help our oceans in the morning announcements helps me to be a better ocean guardian. Thank you for listening.
We want a middle school representation here? No, we won't put you on the spot. Thank you so much, and here comes our.
You know, every single time, I think my heart can't get any more full with the love that I have for our kids at Forest Grove. They do things like this and it just continues to expand. Students, I'm so proud of all of you. You have truly done all the heavy lifting, so give yourself just some snaps. Wow. And I also know we have a ton of students who have been hard at work at this that weren't able to make it tonight, but this is such a joy to see. I'd love to give an extra big thank you to Miss Serpa and Dr. Pelk, because without them, this wouldn't have started. And we're so fortunate because they put in so many hours behind the scenes. I know Miss Serpa had shared a bunch of thank yous, so I won't go into it again, but seriously, every single person who has helped, thank you. Our kids are so excited about it. And we're actually helping the world too. Families, I just wanted to say, if you're listening online or if you're here in person, the more involved you become and the more projects you bring to the table, the bigger this program gets. Please know we'd love to have you with any ideas or projects you have to make Ocean Guardians even bigger. So please reach out. We'd love to have you and make this even larger. I think we're expanding with Robert Down, spoiler alert.
We are going to do
We're-
some community outreach with Robert Down and see if we can grow.
We're interested in all the growth possible. But families, please take us up on that offer. Please come join us on campus and help to expand this. And just thank you again, students. I'm so proud of all of you.
You said this quietly.
All right, well, we're not quite done yet because we want to just take a moment to do a little bit of formal recognition, and then we've got to get a photo before you head home for tonight. So we're going to do that next. But I do have a very official certificate that I would like to be able to present to all of the students at Forest Grove. From what I understand, even though this has been something that has involved our 4th and 5th graders predominantly, talking to Principal Arbery and to Ms. Serpa, I understand that everyone at Forest Grove, all of the students, all of the grades have been involved in some capacity. And so this certificate really is going to be given to your principal because it is for the entire student body. And it is one of our Culture of We certificates that really identifies and helps us reinforce our 3 core values. Do we know what those are? Can you say those with me? Students, safety, belonging, and prosperity, right? And really that's what this represents. And in the work that you have done, that is exactly what you have put into practice. And it says specifically for making waves with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Ocean Guardian Program while carrying out our 3 core values: belonging, safety, and prosperity. So it's my pleasure to be able to present this to Principal Arbery and Ms. Serpa together. If you want to both take it to receive it officially. We all
And the kids.
Yes, we're gonna get a whole photograph up
Okay,
here.
good.
And then I also have certificates for all of your teachers as well, so that you can present these proudly. And yours says the same: for leading the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Ocean Guardian Program at Forest Grove Elementary School while carrying out our 3 core values. So thank you to all of you, and I have one for each of you and our principal as well. So at this time, I think a round of applause for your teachers as well, and your staff and everyone involved. And then students, can you go ahead and join us up here? This is going to be a big group to coordinate, and I'm going to ask all of our trustees and Assistant Soup John and our student body, Grace Gorman, to go ahead and join us here at the front. So let's gather together and see if we can get you all in one photo.
Count of three, say Ocean Guardians. 1, 2, 3.
Is this the silly one?
1, 2. Ocean Guardians.
You just wanted a silly one? Yeah, okay, one silly one. Let's go. No, I just need to send it.
For making our an Ocean Guardian school and whoever else that helped. It sure is a lot of work. I'm having a great time being an Ocean Guardian and helping pick up trash. I think that the school has been getting cleaner each day. Thank you, Miss Serpa and Miss Pelt, for doing Ocean Guardians with us. Bye.
Oh my God. I don't know if everybody wants to leave yet. I think that there might be some board members that have a word or two to say about it. So, back in too. And I think we have other board members who want to say something about this too. I am so overwhelmed by what I just witnessed. And I think about it's like for some of you folks who know me, it's like I'm an angler or a fisherman or whatever you call it. And I was down on the shore just this last Saturday as I was coming up from Costco Beach, and there was a pile of trash, and I get emotional when I see something like that. I didn't understand. And I sent this text to my wife too, where it's just like, I didn't understand how a group of people could sit, in front of a fire and enjoy the ocean and then just leave a bunch of garbage there. And then tonight I see this, and I went home with a bag of garbage too, by the way. It's like, but when I see that with these young people that are so inspired, that love the ocean and everything that surrounds us, that makes us such a great community, I am beside myself. I am just so inspired. And thank you, Ms. Serpa, and everybody who was part of inspiring these young people to make the world a better place. You're doing it, they're doing it, and we're the better for it. So that's all I got. But just, overclamped.
I'll try to keep it quick as well. This is obviously an issue very near and dear to my heart, but I swear I was not involved with the planning of it. I just helped a little bit. I didn't put the seed. This was really, we can't say enough thanks to the kids in particular to put the time in, but Ms. Serpa, I don't know how you have the time, the dedication, the ability to do this on top of everything else you do. So again, with you and Robin Pell to put this effort together again, just to show what we can do when we come together. Really, again, representing that culture of we, right? This isn't one person, it's one person with a wave of people behind them. So thank you so much.
And of course, I'm going to thank you too, and thank everybody that has been involved with this. Beyond this just being this has got to be the best board meeting I've ever been at, ever. And like what great energy and just, really, I can say that it's so easy to use plastic, but just taking a moment to think about where that's ending up, I'm going to really reevaluate my habits, because as a parent and someone that's rushing, it's easy to jam stuff into a plastic bag. But if you look at that plastic bag and think, that's the life of a sea turtle, I'll use paper or wax or something that's biodegradable or reusable wax bag. So thank you for this, and thank you for just all the time and energy that everybody's put into this. I'll be spreading this word around work too at the cafeteria. So maybe we can take this bigger than just our school too. I mean, we all have a responsibility. This ocean is all of ours. So everybody, thank you. Guys.
T-shirts that we.
Thank you for the water bottle. And oh, it's all the little things to be mindful about. So thank you for bringing. Thank you, Mrs. Serpa.
I know the kids call each other out on that too. I love it.
I love the enthusiasm. And they're all being accountable to themselves and to the earth and to the planet, and finding ways to contribute and give and act and advocate. Like, it's amazing. So I'm excited to see this grow, and thank you, Assistant Superintendent Jorn, for getting it off the ground. And it sounds like it's been such a collaborative team effort. So I can't wait for more. Yeah, thanks. And thanks for sitting through the meetings with us.
Thank you. It's pretty much all I need to say, but I will say that hearing the Pledge of Allegiance with all the kids saying it, just like I was back in school myself, was something I don't think we've heard before, at least that I can remember. So even that was so special, like every moment, every family, every parent, guardian coming and taking their evening it's very impactful to us. I love the plug of the field trips. One of the students mentioned that the value of the field trips and the transportation to the field trips. And so as a board member, I really love those field trips, and I'm proud that we've done some, and I'm hopeful that field trips become even easier in this district. So thank you. That's all, because we have a meeting and I don't want to keep everyone tonight, but thank you so much.
Sorry. You can still hear them. If you can still hear them, right? Which is remarkable. I'm blessed that I get to hear that 5 days a week, but you can still hear those kids out there, and it's remarkable. And again, it brings me such great joy. So yeah, so there's that. I know we mentioned that we have a different student rep here tonight, but I did want to call out Grace again too, who's here with us sitting in, and it's so nice to have you. And so with that, let's see, where are we? Written communications. I didn't actually have much this week. I had one relating to some confidential claims and nothing beyond that. So board, any other written communications that you might have received?
I've got some since our last meeting. I got a variety of emails that I call bright spots. They're like thank yous and kudos. One for our food service operation and the people who run it, Director Silvera, etc., and your team. One for MathMates, praising MathMates, which is at Forest Grove and Robert Down now, I believe. And one that was a staff member praise for an individual. And then one that was related to teacher correspondence, one that was related to joint subcommittee of City of PG and PGUSD, one related to the NAACP and Chevron, one related to public policy regarding equity, and one related to agenda content. And that's all I have.
Anybody else with other written communications?
I have a couple to add. I received most of those as well. In addition, an MPC college-wide planning session invitation, a public records request for 2023 employee compensation report, and an invitation to a community human services event called A Party with Heart. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Otmar, any?
I don't think I got anything additional, but if there's something, then I'll bring it up later, but doesn't look like it in my list.
Dr. Hazen?
Yeah, just two mini ones, one about taxation without representation. And then should I just let that hang, or a lesson that was being taught? I thought I really loved hearing about that experiential education. And then one about Measure B at the Butterfly Bazaar.
Perfect. Great. All right. Thanks. Now moving on to board member comments. Let's start actually with our student rep, and if there is anything to report out. Sorry, I didn't want to. I should have. But you're good, right? You're good.
Hi, I'm Grace. I'm the ASB treasurer at Pacific Grove High School. I just have a couple of things to talk about that's stuff going on at the high school. We recently had homecoming week, and that was a big success. There are a lot of students that participated with the themes, the dress-up days, the games, but we're hoping for more participation. We're always hoping for more participation. So we're working on promoting and enforcing closed campus during lunch. So students who oftentimes go off campus for lunch will stay for our lunchtime games, which is a way to celebrate homecoming week. And the homecoming game went well. Congrats to varsity football for winning. The student section participation were good, and everyone loved the floats. Our theme was Candyland. We recently had a mental health awareness day on campus, and we handed out resources like phone hotline numbers, brochures, and bracelets at lunch to students. And next week, we have our fall sports week. The fall sports teams are all doing very well. Volleyball, we played Salinas yesterday. Football has a game today, so we're all doing very well. October 7th to the 11th is Fall Spirit Week. So we have Spirit Days, we have a rally, and lunchtime games. And there are multiple clubs up and running. Baking Club, Math Club, Spanish Club are just to name a few. And there's good participation in all of them. We're having a drama production. It's called She Kills Monsters. The play is in November, and they're all practicing right now. It's a drama comedy inspired by Dungeons and Dragons, and it will be the 3rd and 4th weekends in November. And then my last point is leadership. I'm part of leadership, is trying to get VAPA, with Visual and Performing Arts Week, started again. It took a brief pause after COVID, and we're trying to get that started again in the spring in tandem with Student Voices to further appreciate the fine arts at our school. And thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Moving on to other board member comments. I'll start down on the far right. Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
No comment this week. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee McNary, anything?
Yes. I had the opportunity to visit the preschool inclusion classroom at our David Avenue site, and I'll keep it short, but it was definitely the highlight of the week. We have kiddos who are 3 years old in a classroom. It's a gen ed setting, but it's kiddos who have IEPs, it's kiddos who don't have IEPs, and they're all learning together and learning from each other. And it was just such a joy and a really beautiful highlight. So much thanks to staff and admin and Director Cork Anthony for making that possible. And I'm really excited to see what's to come. And while we were there, Director Cork Anthony was gifted a piece of artwork from a student. So I'm excited to see that hanging in her office as well. But I feel like those little moments, just receiving the artwork or a staff member feeling comfortable to come up and say, hey, we could use a wellness center, just like shows the culture that we're trying to build, where it's okay to speak up and everybody's welcome. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Otmar?
Nothing from me tonight. Thank you, though.
Dr. Hazen?
Just two quick things. One, I didn't mention at the initial presentation, but seeing the kids give each other high fives and props I hope that is able to continue beyond elementary to the middle and high school, because that level of support is something I wish I had in my job. I didn't get any high fives tonight. So I got there. Saying. Second, I just report back on the PGUSD city subcommittee. We met, like, that was Monday, just a few days ago. It's a little bit of a blur. 4 issues that came up. We were discussing the crosswalks at Fountain in front of Robert Down on Pine. There was a good discussion about safe paths to school, and this is one I think that I would like to see us try to take up is, how do we make sure families know, particularly those new to the area, are there best, safest ways to get to our various school sites? Pickleball was discussed and there was no comment from the public, which is a first in my experience. And then last was the shared use agreement, just really figuring out ways we can, as a small district, as a small city, we can best share resources and maximize opportunities for our kids as this district and for our community as the city. Thanks.
Thank you for that. One other quick thing. I started my morning out at Community High, where we got to do a little social emotional roundtable, which again, it's like the best part of my day. Really, I don't have to pay for therapy. But just spending time with Sherry and Manzer and those students, I wish I could do that every week, because it was just remarkable, especially when you can sit there for 90 minutes and have a group of people listen to you talk about yourself. And being so giving. But the exchange was fabulous, and I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss those parts of this thing. But anyway, that's it. Let's move on to superintendent report.
You weren't talking about yourself, President Swanson. You were giving them inspiration and the piece about, right? What finding joy and love in the work you do. Come on, you're misrepresenting yourself. Right. Well, thank you for that. And I don't know. I before I even start with anything, just what a beautiful energy, what a beautiful way to start our meetings. It's been a priority for us this year that we're going to start every meeting with something focused on our students, and it's just a joy. And I think it helps, hopefully for all of us here, it reminds us of our why. So again, to Forest Grove for bringing them here. All right, so just a few things for me to report on. I always find myself as I'm sitting here and then you're all going through yours and I start looking through, I've got way too much that I want to share out on, and I try to, maybe I'm trying to minimize a little bit here, but there's so much good stuff and I've just got to shout it from the mountaintop. So excuse me again, I've got a lot to share, but I'll go through it pretty quickly. I want to start with today. We were fortunate enough to have a visit from the Monterey County Office of Education, and Dr. Deneen Gass, our county superintendent, was here for a scheduled visit, and she was joined by one of her board members, Nettie Steck, and their public relations official as well, who was there to kind of take photos and sort of record the visit. I was joined by Assistant Superintendent John, and we got to visit. Our focus today was our 2 elementary schools, because when she was here last year, she visited the middle and the high school, so that seemed appropriate. We didn't have a lot of time, so we tried to make it into as many classes as we could, sort of cramming that in. So we really focused on sort of the lower and the upper grades. So we started with TK and K at both of our school sites. It was wonderful because they were all putting on those final touches for the butterfly parade on Saturday. So it was neat to just kind of see that. In one of the classes, we got to dance to the superhero song. I mean, that was just in Mrs. Kelly's class. I mean, that's one of my favorites, right? So we got to do that and act like TKers, right, for a few minutes. Actually, it was the kindergarten class, and it was selected specifically by Assistant Superintendent Dawn's daughter, Kennedy, whose birthday it happened to be today. So that was very special. It was great to see. Then we sort of made it up to the 4th and 5th graders. So it perfectly timed in Forest Grove. We were able to kind of hear a little from them, and they were so excited about the presentation this evening. Got to hear a little of what they were going to be presenting. So that was awesome. And then at Robert Down, we got to see one of the 4th grade classes was doing unbelievable dissections. And it was, they were dissecting owl pellets to kind of identify what owls eat. And so they were finding the bones of the skeletons and then having to put these skeletons together, and unbelievable. So again, just, so much to see and so engagement of our students, to see them just engaged and just finding joy, right, in the learning that they're doing and connecting what they're learning to why it relates, to their lives and their futures. Dr. Gus was able to share a little of what she does and her role, so that was neat, and some of the questions that students asked her, and she was incredibly impressed just with the articulate way and sort of the interest that our students showed. So that was wonderful to see. But mainly, I think for me, the overall joy is wonderful when you have guests coming in to see that really this is just any given day at any one of our school sites. And we get to show that off. This was not something that was being, it was special because we had, a guest. This was just a regular day. A lot of the teachers didn't even know we were going to show up in their rooms. And so it's a joy for me to just see that, others that, see what we get to experience on a daily basis. There's so many things to highlight, and just appreciative of our school sites to host us. Let's see, my second one, just a culture of we update. And again, that's just sort of a focus. You hear it constantly in how we're talking in relating everything we do to what our theme is for this year, our culture of we, and how we're really aligning our 3 core values to everything that we do. So on that note, I'm thrilled because we've talked about the posters that really identify our 3 core values, and they just arrived fresh off the press yesterday. So we have a bunch of these. We have ordered one for every classroom across our district, one for every room, every space. You will see these posted at all of our school sites and here at the district office. So more to come on that, but just wanted to share this. This was exciting for us to be able to share with Dr. Gus today as well, to kind of get a sense of, what we are focused on for the year ahead. And on that, as you know, a big one of our LCAP goals this year is very specific on cultural proficiency, which really follows through on the work that we had already begun as a school district the last few years. And each of our school sites, through their plans, identified that in their school plans, and we've highlighted that in our LCAP goal as well as a district. And so what we're doing at our leadership meetings is our principals are able to share a little each time we meet on the progress they're making on those plans. So I wanted to give just a quick little snippet of just the highlights of some of the work that they are doing with a focus on parent engagement. And so, Forest Grove right now, I was able to actually hear specifically their back to school night from a message from Principal Arbrun on how they are creating that culture of we at Forest Grove. And through a recent staff meeting, the focus on every kid needs a champion was really a focus of discussion amongst our staff. If you haven't heard that one, it's pretty amazing. Rita Pearson really just talks about that connection and the need for champions and for our students having that connection with adults. Robert Down held a toolbox parent meeting, and that is really our social and emotional learning tool that we use currently that really helps provide skills for students to really practice things like self-regulation, their ability to incorporate critical thinking into all that they do. So again, tying in our parent engagement and for their understanding of the importance of those skills. At the middle school, there's a strong focus on parent outreach with a parent boot camp recently, a bias-based bullying parent evening, and then a wellness fair community event that they've been focusing on and as part of their plan. At the high school, there's been a strong focus, and we heard a little of it from Grace this evening, but their leadership and ASB are working closely with admin to develop and communicate opportunities for all students to become more involved in a variety of activities, all again, building that culture of we. And there's been a very specific focus with our new Principal O'Meara, on developing that social media account, on ensuring that everything, all the great things that are happening, that they get to highlight that with their, we are PG High sort of logo. And then really at our adult ed, we got to see Principal Martinez has organized a training through, it's a component for a training to really incorporate parent engagement at the adult ed. And so she had an entire unbelievable group of parents and staff who were here the last 2 days in this boardroom in just participating in that training. With the whole idea that success starts at home, right? So the idea is that we're creating confident kids, communication that works, creating structure for achievement, discipline, practice for success, what children and teams need to succeed, and parents who are engaged for academic success. And the idea being that when the school and the home come together and work together, we can ultimately ensure the success for all of our students. And that's really where the prosperity comes in, right? For one of our 3 core values. So that's at the school site. And then again, just district-wide, our focus on our restorative justice partnership partnership through the book study of restorative justice in education. We've already had our first training with our consultant, Dwan and Nicole. And so that is continuing through the training with our site principals and our assistant principals who are then following through on that training at the school sites with our staff. So again, just that reminder of cultural proficiency as alive and well through tying that in with our culture of we and our 3 core values. And we want to be sure that we continue to really highlight that and show the work that's being done at our school sites. On the sports front, just 2 quick things I want to share out. Our football team, was delighted that they had another win last week with King City, I believe it was. And then kind of a first event ever is what I'm being told by our cross-country coaches, Ryan and Tracy Trabayel, that tomorrow night marks the first cross-country home event here at Pacific Grove. And so it's going to start out at 4:00. If you are available and you've got some time, I encourage you to head on over there. It's by the community high school where the start of the race will be. The girls varsity race will begin at 4, followed by the boys varsity at 4:25, and it'll be wrapped up with a co-ed race at 4:45. So I am definitely going to be there, running near and dear to my heart, but so excited to be able to see that actually come into fruition. So they're super excited. I know, again, even here, Assistant Superintendent John was very instrumental in helping develop that course, and they are unbelievably grateful. So it's exciting to see that happen. The other piece, it's just we've been very busy on the last couple of weeks. We promised it, and what's happening is just providing as much information as we can on our Measure B general obligation bond, ensuring that that message is getting out to our community, to our families with children in the district, but also we're trying to reach as many community members who don't have children. And so we had our public forum last week, which was attended by many community members. The majority of attendees were community members without students. And so that was really important, I think, to get as much of that information available. President Swanson has joined me on a couple of those already, as have several of our other trustees, to be involved and attend some of our PTA meetings to really get that information out. I'm always very clear, as Assistant Superintendent John and I have presented and been there to answer a lot of questions, because he's been very involved with that along with me too. And we're very clear on when we, present that we're not there to endorse, or, we're there to simply give the information, ensure that when voters head to the polls on November 5, they are doing so with the ability to make an informed decision. That's the most important thing. And really, I just think the most important things on that is that reminder of on that bond, right? It's that ability that with the $78 million, if approved, is going to be able to go to the improvement of facilities, of our programs, right? When we're talking STEAM, when we're talking our science and engineering, arts, mathematics, along with the needed improvements we need for safety. Those are all what we're going to be relying on for those funds, right? That would be if that bond is approved. That reminder that when we build that facility masters plan, it will be with the involvement of and the engagement of our community. And ultimately, yes, for this to happen, right, we ultimately are going to need the funds from the bond. And so it is in the voters' hands. But again, we are appreciative for the attendees that we've had, the information we've been able to get out there. We will have a booth at the Butterfly Bazaar on Saturday as well to share more information. So if you're in the area, please stop by. Let's see, 3 more items. I promise I'm coming to the end. Safety, I think I just really want to take a moment. We had our first safety committee, our second safety committee meeting earlier this week, and Assistant Superintendent John will be sharing out the highlights of that. But really a big topic of that, which we brought forward to get input and share more details on with the committee, was the incident that occurred last week at Pacific Grove High School. As many of you very likely know, we had an unauthorized visitor who entered the campus and really, when approached by a staff member, was a little adversarial and made a threat to that particular staff member. And so as a result, yes, we did need to go ahead and contact PGPD. But what I shared with the committee that night was really, I want to highlight what went so well. And I think as a result, and I wanted to share with the safety committee in particular, but really our entire community, is when we had incidents occur last last year, what we learned through that, and that was as a result of really hearing from our community, engaging, and really gathering information, which we ultimately were able to apply as a result of what we learned from last year. And so very quickly, I think the biggest thing that worked well in that event was the situational awareness that every one of our staff members at PG High School showed in that moment. And we talk about that all the time. That's one of the most important pieces for us to, when we see something, we say something. And that's exactly what happened that moment. There was immediate communication. We contacted 911 immediately. Our Officer Hill, our SRO, was able to be immediately contacted thereafter to be on site within minutes. And that's that whole sense of just empowering our staff to act in the moment, to think on their feet, right? That is the situational awareness and the training that we provide and we talk about all the time. The communication to our other sites immediately, right, through our emergency chat was able to happen to just make them aware. As we shared in our communication that went out to the community last week, there was no need ever to go into any kind of, closed campus. Things happened very quickly. There was immediate contact and, eyes on the individual throughout this time. As a result of that, PGPD afterwards shared how incredibly impressed they were with the immediate response time and their ability to, within minutes, be able to be on site, make contact with the individual, and really be able to have it come to a close without any contact with our students. And then really beyond that, the communication to our community happened quickly thereafter. But the other big thing that we learned last year from the input we received was it was a missing piece that we had missed in so many of the situations and how we responded. And that was the ability to ensure that we communicated with students right before they left for that day. And so our ability with Principal O'Meara and his voice to be able to share that message with students before they left at the end of the day with that calm reassurance of what had occurred, that everyone was safe. And even what I had heard from several parents after that situation was how relieved it was for them to hear on their students, right, when they picked them up that afternoon, what had occurred with this reassurance of it's okay, we were safe, right, and to have the information at hand. So again, wrapping up with that, just that's what worked well, that's what we've learned, and that's what we ultimately get to apply in all of our future situations. So again, kudos to our staff at PG High School. Thank you to you. And again, that's what we do, right? We see something, we say something, we act on it. Yes, and so Butterfly Parade on Saturday, I'm excited. It's my first one, so I won't say any more beyond that. I will have lots to share about that in my newsletter on Monday and at our next meeting, so I cannot wait. And really my last one, and this is a little bit more on a more serious note, October 7, really it marks the 1-year anniversary next week of the October 7 events that occurred last year in Israel. As a result of that, we received a message from our state superintendent, Tony Thurman, today. And there is a component of the letter that he sent that I just want to take a moment to share this evening because I think it's important, it's appropriate, and it's timely. He wrote, "The California's public education system supports some of the most diverse school communities in the nation. Please recognize that many of our Jewish and Israeli American students know someone who was killed or taken hostage in the attack of unarmed civilians on October 7th. And many of our Arab American, Palestinian American, and Muslim students know someone who has been killed in and around Gaza during the many military strikes that have taken place since the start of the war. We must do everything we can to ensure these students feel safe at school." I love that he added on to that as sort of that advocacy for that our role as educators and being mindful of our students here at PGUSD, that we need to ensure that our classrooms are always safe spaces in which our students can have safe, structured discussions that allow for multiple viewpoints and experiences to be shared without consequence for expressing one's views or beliefs. And I really just feel it's an important message for us to remind. I sent that message to our principals today to really be mindful. There's resources that are available. But I think during this time, nothing else is more important for us to just be mindful of the fact that we have students who may be fearful and who may be worried about coming to school. Our role is to serve as protectors for them. And when we talk about our community of we talk about our 3 core values, right? Safety is there, front and center. Belonging. It is our due diligence to ensure that, yes, we are ensuring that when they do come, that they are safe, that they have a space for their voices to be heard, and that they know they're going to have that protective, safe, to be ensure that their classrooms are safe and inclusive. Again, I just serve that as that reminder for us to be mindful and feel it's important. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over. And I'm so sorry, President Swanson, that felt really long.
No,
Okay.
that was great. Thank you so much. And again, I'm looking at our core values here: belonging, safety, prosperity. You know, it's like, if we can't bring that to our students, that's why we're here. That's what our job is. So thank you for all of that. And all that, everything else happened in just 2 weeks. So it was a lot. So thank you again for that. Safety report, Assistant Superintendent Jordan, you're up.
Thank you, President Swanson. And Dr. Adamson led in with this earlier during her superintendent's update, but we did have our second district-wide safety committee that was on Tuesday night. And the mission of the safety committee, I'll just read this because I think it's important, is for PG Unified to foster a safe, secure, and supportive learning environment for all students, staff, and visitors across our campuses. This committee is dedicated to collaboration. We have a diverse group of stakeholders that make up the committee. Actually, we had so many folks that were interested, we had to limit it to the size of the committee. We have everyone from parents, educators, administrators, community members, our first responders are there. And the intent of the committee is to provide insight, strategic development, continuous improvement to our current plans and future plan protocols, and of course, to properly communicate with our stakeholders and within our community. I'm just going to highlight what we discussed at the safety committee because I think it's relevant. A lot of this has to do with what the district's been doing this year. We went over at the beginning of the committee the rollout of the top 3 concerns that came out of the MC Kimball and Associates 1-year threat and risk assessment. Item number 1, we discussed the visitor management system rollout on September 9th. Let's just note that rolled out at every one of our campuses. We went through the annual safety trainings that are being offered this year and the ones that have been scheduled. Number 1 being We Got Your Back training. That is the active intruder response for students. And this is the training that our teachers are going to go through that they will bring into their classroom. And it's an age specific grade level appropriate training being trained by MC Kimball and Associates. We do have a number of our school sites right now that already have this training set up for this year. We have multiple active intruder trainings for staff, both of which are asynchronous. One of them is a crisis response for active shooters course, and the other one is associated with our threat and risk assessment, mental health threat and risk assessments. Behavioral health threat and risk assessments. We discussed with the committee the behavioral threat assessment team training that the district went through on September 12th. It was a 2-day training. Every single school site has their entire team now has been built. All of the information is on our website, and we are going to work through. We highlighted the importance of how important it is to mitigate any sort of a threat that may occur, not just with a student, but with a staff member, with a parent. And the district's now implemented a level 1 threat and risk assessment tool, which was something that we garnered from the San Mateo County Office of Education, who is the entity that started Big 5 training protocols. Our campus supervisors under the SB 50 bill have the mandated campus supervisor training, and we have partnered with PGUSD. I've been talking about this for some time now, but that training has now been rolled out to our campus supervisors. The Narcan distribution and drug awareness forum, we had that a couple of weeks ago. We also wanted to highlight the fact that anywhere on our campuses where we have AEDs, we have Narcan available for our student population. And when we're rolling out our evacuation maps, one of the things I asked Director Anderson to do, I noticed that it didn't occur on the Forest Grove maps, and we're going to get those revised, but to note where the AED locations are on every single campus, because if you have a campus map in front of you, in every single classroom is a campus map now, definitely at Roberttown and Forest Grove, we're continuing to roll these out at all of the campuses, but you'll have the ability to know where is an AED located, where is the Narcan located, and so on. So this is something that's important to our district. It was definitely important to the safety committee when it was raised at the committee level. We did go through a Big 5 safety protocol presentation from Director Martinez. We provided a lot of information to our safety committee this year on the related to training, a lot of links, a lot of flyers, try to get them more informed than they were in the past. We've talked a lot about this at a high level, but I think this was kind of a more engaged discussion that we've had than we've had in the past. Another item that we brought to the table was the discussion around safe routes to schools. Dr. Hazen mentioned that earlier as it relates to our joint subcommittee with the City Pacific Grove. They actually asked, the city of PG did ask for the district to get involved and to have some form of a forum or setting or platform to discuss safe routes to school. There was a lot of good ideas that were sparked during that conversation with our district safety committee this week. And we're going to further that and bring recommendations to the joint subcommittee through our safety committee. We also talked about next steps related to our facilities master plan. We went through what is Measure A and what it's for. We talked a lot about cameras and the camera systems that we have in our schools currently, and some of the upgrades the district is doing simply related to the rollout of additional coverage for our sites. Not anything beyond that at this point, just new cameras that have on campuses where we've had kind of gray areas or dark areas, adding new cameras. Director Algaze did his bid walk, I believe it was last week, and we have a bid out right now for that for projects this summer. This is a 3-year plan associated with Measure A, but a lot of the committee members weren't even familiar with Measure A, the tech bond, and what it was for. We did talk quite a bit about Measure D and the impetus for Measure D, what it covered, and then again, we kind of went into the discussion around Measure B and some of the associated safety projects that could come from Measure B once we get through our facilities master planning process. So very great forum for discussion. Again, we had, I don't know, maybe 35 or 40 people. We plan to have these committee meetings 3 times a year. They're ad hoc, but a lot of good information, a lot of good community input, and very thankful for the establishment of that committee because it helps kind of drive the decisions we make moving forward. And that's it for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Moving on now to individuals desiring to address the board. We start with community members. This is for non-agenda items. Just a reminder to everybody, you're limited to 3 minutes, 20 minutes total on any particular subject. But if there are any community members, anybody online, Director Algaze? No one, anyone in the room with non-agenda comments? Okay, so we're going to move on then to staff comments on non-agenda items. Do we have anybody online or in the room? Seeing no one. All right. We're moving on then to consent agenda. For those of you who missed the just most compelling beginning of this meeting, we did remove consent item J, but the agenda was approved with the removal of that. Is there any public comment on consent as it's presented this evening? Anybody online? No one. Anyone in the room with comments on consent? Let's move that then to any board comments or discussion on consent.
I just want to make a reminder, we scratched J for those
Yes.
folks that might have missed that, but otherwise, yeah, I have no problem with consent as it is.
Okay. Student representative Gorman, anything? Oh, okay. All right. So looking for a motion to approve consent.
I'll make a motion to approve consent with the removal of J.
I'll second.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Student advisory vote in favor or against? All right. Remainder of the board, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing or hearing nobody, it passes unanimously. And so thank you for that. Moving on now to public hearing. And as I understand it, what we're doing is opening all 4 items at the same time. And I know we need to actually clock that in. It's October 3, 7:45 p.m. And we're opening up public hearings on these 4 items. Do I need to actually read them out loud or? Okay. All right. Well, then I'm going to need to get my glasses. And not those glasses. These 4 items will be, I'm supposed to do that, PGTA Sunshine List for our 24-25 school year, PGUSD Sunshine List negotiations for 2024-2025. The 3rd item, PGUSD initial proposal for CSA Sunshine List negotiations, again, 2024-2025. And then the 4th item, CSEA initial proposal to the PGUSD Sunshine List 2024-2025. And we're opening this public hearing. So, are there any comments? We're seeing nobody online and anyone in the room?
I have a question.
Yes.
It's just because I haven't seen us have more than one public hearing agendized at a time. So I'm just checking in about that to make sure we're compliant with everything we need to legally. it's allowed.
Yes, it is allowed. I mean, we've always done the four, and I
Right.
think if you look back in history, it's been done both ways, where we've sort of
Okay.
listed and done each one separately, then closed and done it. We've done it this way too, but we have verified that it's okay to
We're
put them all
compliant.
together.
Thank you. That's my only question.
And then when we come back, once we close it, right, we'll do these one by one by one. Yeah. So, okay. All right, so I'm not seeing any public comment and I'm not, is there anything that, Chief Rogeman wants to add, or are we going to close this out and then open it up to action discussion?
I think if no one has any comment, then we can close it out and then we'll open it up for action.
Okay, it is now 7:47 and we're closing the public hearing on those four particular items, moving on to action discussion. Item A, approval of the PGUSD proposal to the PGTA Sunshine List negotiations 2024-2025. Dr. Adamson.
Yes, so this evening, District Administration is recommending the approval of the list of sunshine topics for bargaining purposes with PGTA in the 24-25 school year. The list of sunshine topics are listed on the actual cover page as well for your reference. We are recommending that it is approved.
Terrific. Let's open that up to public comment. Is there anybody online? Nobody online? Anybody in the room with public comment on this particular item? Not seeing anyone. So let's move this now to board discussion, and let's begin with our student representative. Any comments or concerns? No? Okay. Move it on to the rest of the board. Seeing no one. All right, so we're looking for a motion and a second.
I can make the motion to approve a PGUSD's initial proposal. Did we cover public comment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
then I will make that motion.
Okay. I will second that. So we have a motion from Trustee McNary and a second from me. Student representative vote. You in favor? Okay. The remainder of the board, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously. Thank you very much for that. Second, action discussion, item B, approval of the PGTA initial proposal to the Sunshine List negotiations 2024-25 school year. Dr. Adamson.
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to defer to Chief Rogeman for this particular one to introduce it.
The district proposes that we open up the wages and benefits as well as the transfer language in the contract for 2024 in our negotiations with the PGTA. We look forward to working together just as we have in the past to come to a good sound agreement that leads to improvement in the contract language and a sound settlement in terms of wages and health and welfare. If anybody has any questions about the topics that we'd like to open, I'm happy to entertain those at this time.
Okay, thank you. Let's go first to public comment. Anybody online? Looks like nobody online. Anyone in the room with public comment on this? Not seeing anyone. So let's begin with our student representative again. All right, so on to the board discussion, questions, comments.
Just a quick one, for the sake of the student rep too, like this is Sunshine List is just giving an idea of what we want on the table for negotiations. So we really just value, you won't have an official vote, but we really value your opinion on these things if you want to give them, but don't feel obligated. So I just wanted to give that high level, no concern with this topic though.
All right, so, and I'm seeing no other board comments. So, noting that, looking for a motion and a second.
Also move.
All right.
Second.
Who gave the second? Okay, so motion from trustee Dr. Hazen and a second from trustee Carolyn Swanson. Student advisory vote. In favor? All right, board, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Thanks, everybody. On that, moving on now to action discussion. C, approval of the PGUSD initial proposal in the CSEA Sunshine List negotiations 2024-25 school year. Dr. Adamson.
Thank
you. And here, in a similar vein, we are seeking approval for the list of sunshine topics for bargaining purposes with CSEA for the 24-25 school year. Once again, the items we're opening are listed on the cover page.
Anybody online with public comment? Looks like no one. Anybody in the room? I'm seeing no one. Again, student advisory, any comments? Moving to the board, comments, concerns, suggestions. All right, so looking for a motion and a second.
Also move.
And I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from trustee Otmar, a second from trustee Dr. Hazen. Student advisory vote. Remainder of the board, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously. Thanks, everybody, for that. Now, moving on to action discussion D, right? Which is our approval of the CSEA initial proposal to the PGUSD Sunshine List negotiations for the 2024-25 school year.
Great. So the CSEA has also proposed wages and health and benefits being opened. And in addition, Article 4 that covers the hours of employment. So those are the three areas that CSEA would like to open. And we look forward to really productive contract negotiations with our classified group as well. We've done a lot already in the first few months of the school year to make some real, improvements in a lot of areas working with CSEA. And we're confident that that goodwill is going to transfer over to the negotiation table.
All right, thank you for that. Let's move on to public comment. I'm guessing nobody. Anybody in the room? There's nobody online. Let's move it on to our student rep. No, nothing there. And the remainder of the board. Anybody? Okay. Looking for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion.
I'm going to second. So a motion from trustee Dr. Hazen, a second from me, Brian Swanson, student vote. All right, in favor, remainder of the board, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. So it's almost like a Jackson 5 song, A, B, C. But then it goes on.
The D is in the remix. So, yeah.
You know what? And as a quick aside, I think about the days before. It's a quick aside, but I think about the days before Zoom when we could just have these meetings and I could cue up music. And you can't do that anymore because now we're on YouTube and we get flagged and our meetings would get taken down, which is kind of a bummer. But otherwise, I would be maybe playing a little Jackson 5 right now. Yeah. Action discussion, item F, resolution 1141, week of the school administrator, and Chief Rogaman, I believe.
One more.
Issue before that. Oh, I'm sorry. I was moving along too quickly. Resolution 1140. Sorry. Issuance of sales. Well, and of course, that's why. I know why we have somebody in the room here now too. So issuance and sale of Measure D election 2020 Series C general obligation bond. Assistant Superintendent Jorn.
Thank you, President Swanson. So tonight I'm bringing forward to you for approval, Resolution 1140, which is the sale, Series C sale of our general obligation bond Measure D, passed by the voters in 2020. These series were supposed to be 4 equal releases. We are down to around 17,400,000 left in authorization. So what we're bringing forward to you tonight is a $8,700,000 release for Series D. As mentioned before, this was a measure general obligation bond passed by 55% of the qualified voters in our district. Series C will be sold directly through Raymond James, as mentioned in the cover sheet. We do have good faith estimates included in the packet, and I do have Dale Scott in the room for any questions related to the sale of this series. But again, as I mentioned, this is the third of 4 series releases for Measure D.
Thank you. Let's move on. Is there any public comment on this particular item? There's nobody online. Anybody in the room? I almost feel like somebody should ask a question just because Dale came. It came in and has been sitting here, but so there's no public comment. Let's move on to the board student rep. Any questions concerning this? All right, remainder of the board.
I'll ask a question or two just to make Dale's trip worth it. So just for the benefit of anyone who recalls that when we put this bond out on the ballot, we had kind of mentioned it was a 10-year bond and that we were gonna do the series over a course of 10 years. From my understanding, that is flexible. It's totally fine to do them in whatever time frame we want. And I want to just confirm that because I could be totally wrong. Because it hasn't been anywhere close to 10 years.
That is correct. The numbers that were given or the dates that were given to the voters were estimates of the board at that time, but it was clear in the documents that you had the right to change that as needs be, longer or shorter, could be either way.
Okay. Great. And then just a staff question. If a member of the public would like to see the current list of Measure D projects and forecasted projects, where can they go for that?
Yeah, the current list we have is published on our website right now under the facilities page. We have two lists. One of them is a 5-year deferred maintenance needs list, and one is the last one published is a 2023-24 Measure D projects list, which shows the actual tracking of projects and expenditures associated with Measure D projects, and both are on our website.
Okay. And from my understanding, those are both kind of fluid documents, alive documents, as you would say. And if there's a staff member or community member who wants to bring an idea forth for a project, how would they go about doing that?
Well, they would be bringing that through our board, because what needs to take place is that our board actually will approve any future project expenditures associated with Measure D for this year. So every single year I've been here, Director Anderson brings a list of projected projects forward. They can definitely reach out to staff and have that conversation and see if that project does fall in alignment with, the language associated with Measure D. And then the district would then, potentially bring those to the board, but it's the board's discretion to develop the project list. So right now we're still working through the prior approved project list from our board because there was not enough in Measure D Series B sales to cover those projects. But again, we should bring the project list forward every single year. Director Anderson will be doing that this year. I'm anticipating bringing it forward in November.
Okay, so if we have a principal or a teacher or classified member who has an idea for a Measure D project, they would bring it to you. You would kind of run it through some filters of what you think would be appropriate, and then it would ultimately come to the board.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, any other board comments? All right, and we already went through, no, go
I
ahead.
can just imagine kind of piggybacking on what you're saying, like forms for input so that the projects that are valuable to families in the community are getting done. And that people have a place to put them. And I hope that that's something that's also going to be a big component as we're moving forward, regardless of bond money with our facilities master planning and being able to have those opportunities so that we can plan it out in a thoughtful, long-term way. Is that right?
Yeah, I would also say that now that we actually have an updated facilities needs assessment, that really helps our district with kind of the roadmap. And I know that, maybe the impetus for that was the discussion around Measure B, but that really is the state of the district as it stands right now. So that will help the board guide the district as to how to spend the remaining Measure D funds as well.
Just to clarify what you were talking about, are you talking about like an online form that's accessible to the public?
No, I recall from the two individuals that came and presented after the completion of the facilities needs assessment that is part of the larger plan to create a facilities master plan, that there would be different community forums or methods for various partners and groups to be able to submit their input and their thoughts and contribute to building that plan out. So I just want to make sure that's still happening. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So EHA MGT, who presented, actually did prepare an amended contract for the district for the facilities master plan. We plan to bring that forward in November. And that entire facilities master planning programming process does include community engagement, community outreach, multiple town hall meetings. So I think that does answer the question. We're bringing it in November.
Do we have a process for right now? So the process for right now, I guess, until we get to that point is contact staff.
Right, well, the process right now for utilization of expenditures is just tied to projects that have been previously approved that have not been completed. But if there is a interest in a project, yes, they would just come to staff for an interest in a project. And then we would advise them that once we start the facilities master planning process, that really is the forum for that type of community engagement.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the only piece I would like to add to that is typically if it is a staff member who has an idea of something that would be applicable to their site, I think usually our process for that would be to, number one, have that conversation with their principal typically, and then, they would then bring that forward, right, from there. I mean, they can absolutely, reach, forward, but I think that just, again, it's following those protocols of it's, just easier to, sort of manage if it's a staff member. If it's a parent or a, community member who has that idea, again, yes, they can contact, Assistant Superintendent John or myself directly, or, their site principals as well. Bring it through, a PTA meeting, a student site, a school site council meeting, any one of those forums as well would be
I
appropriate.
appreciate all of the options. And then I did read in the materials that it says presentation of actual cost information will be presented at a future board meeting. So I'm understanding that we will get some type of list itemized that will clearly spell out what we're spending the funds on. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So again, it's we're spending the dollars on current approved projects, but also every year the board approves all project expenditures before they take place. So again, working on the prior list of previously approved projects, any new potential projects that might be added to that list that fall within the confines of what the Measure D language was for, that would have to be a list brought to the board for approval prior to the expenditures, prior to the project award and prior to any expenditures. So Director Anderson plans to bring an entirely new 24-25 list to the board this year.
Okay. And just one kind of, I like to check the boxes. This has all been reviewed by legal and we're in compliance with all of our obligations on our end.
We are, yeah, we have bond counsel who did the review all of the documents, not Lizana Smith.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Anybody else? I mean, great questions. I think it's especially when we're looking at something like this, where, there was a bond measure that happened years ago, and then you're trying to figure out, it's like, well, so what was that for? And what are we doing with this? And it's so much a part of the purpose of these meetings too, is sometimes just bring something up again and to inform the public, even asking the questions that we might know the answers to, but to make sure that other people know the answers to those questions too. So, appreciate all the input, of course, and unless there is other board discussion, I'm looking for a motion and a second on item E. And I'm going to move, now looking for a second.
I'll second.
All right, so a motion by me and a second by Trustee Dr. Hazen, Student Advisory. Okay, you're good? All right, the remainder of the board, all in favor, say aye.
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 Hi.
Anyone opposed? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously. Thank you. Dale, thank you for coming on out. Get home safe. Moving on now to
President Swanson?
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting. Just as a point of order with regard to the last item, because it is a resolution, do we need a roll call vote?
Oh.
Okay.
Good catch. All right, so let's go roll call on that.
President Swanson.
Aye.
Trustee Dr. Hazen.
Aye.
Trustee Otmar.
Aye.
Trustee McNeary.
Aye.
And Trustee Swanson.
Aye.
And Student Board Rep. Aye.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks for that good catch too. Okay, now moving on to another one that will call for a roll call vote, Resolution 1141, Week of the School Administrator, Chief Rogaman.
Thank you, President Swanson. It's my pleasure and my honor to come and talk about the Week of the School Administrator. It's a little bit awkward for us to bring this one forward as one of the administrators. Typically, we are far more comfortable in the role of expressing our appreciation for the staff that devotes their lives to teaching and providing a safe educational setting for our students. Dr. Adamson does an outstanding job of being a role model for that. However, I know that those school administrators that traveled the path that I did, 14 years in, I made a decision to step out of teaching and coaching and to decide to become a school administrator to see if, I could extend leadership to a larger group of folks. I'm thankful that I did that. And yet, there's still those days that I pine for those teaching and coaching moments. So there's a sacrifice that comes along with being a school administrator. And when we're talking about the school administrators, we're talking about superintendents, assistant superintendents, principals, assistant principals, special education, adult education leaders, curriculum and assessment leaders, school business officials, and classified educational leaders. And so we would like to declare the week of October 14th through the 18th as the week of the school administrator. And I don't know if that's appropriate or not, that's our fall break. Yeah. So I don't know if that's, I'm not really sure what to say. But all I know is that, every colleague that I work side by side with when I was at a site, and every colleague that I've worked side by side with here at the district office in service of our site admin, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor for me to be able to call myself a school administrator. And we'd like to extend that gratitude to all of our school administrators in the district.
Thank you very much for presenting that. Let's first go out to public comment. We have anybody online? We don't. We have anybody in the room for public comment on this? Yeah, by all means.
I just wanted to say that maybe in the future, we could make sure that it's not during a break time so that our administrators are honored by, everyone, whether it's staff, families, etc. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anybody else in the room, a public comment on this? I do have a question now that we're going to move on to board comments. So how is that determined? It's like, do we determine it, or is it or is it determined by the state, or who decides?
I'm going to be honest, I don't know.
Okay.
I believe it is determined by the state. All of our recognitional dates are determined at that level. But I do believe we have the ability to make a change to that date. If it's during this week, like I think Teacher Appreciation Week will often, determine, a different week if it's more applicable, if we've got testing going on, that kind of thing. So point taken. Yes, we will absolutely make a note of that for future. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Can I ask another maybe difficult question, but is it too late to make that change now? If it is, that's fine. But is that a modification we can make?
I think we could amend the resolution.
Exactly. I agree to that. Yes. Yeah. And, and even though that would be probably, we could probably make the change right now. Yep, indeed. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To the 21st through the 25th.
That's what I was thinking. The week after.
Come back. Love it.
Politics in action.
Not opposed, but I don't know if we can do that. Like it was presented with this, agenda wise, can we change
right now?
Can we change it right now?
But if we're making a modification, if we're trying to make a motion, we could make a motion to modify it. And the question is, would it have to be brought back in front of us with the modification, or could we modify it given, is it substantive enough that we would
I think
have
the piece for us to know, and I'll leave it to the board to make that decision if we want to try to do it officially, but for us as a district, we can go ahead and just determine that our date is going to be, that maybe on the resolution, and this is the official week, but we're at PG, we're going to go ahead and, we'll communicate it that this will be the week that we celebrate it instead. So families will get that message and we can do it that way. But
sorry if I cut you off before you were going to speak, Laura. That feels more comfortable to me.
Okay, well, if we are done discussing, then I would move to pass this resolution with the understanding that in real life, it's going to be the week of October the 21st to the 25th, because I think it's very important that we are all present to celebrate the great job that everyone is doing.
So before we go to
It's a long
that
motion.
second, did we ask for a student rep comment on that? Did we already go?
I can work with the leadership class to make sure that our school officials, administrators are appreciated at specifically the high school. I don't know about the middle school and elementary, but I'll talk to them.
Okay, awesome, thank you. And I look across this room too of everybody that's there, and there's not anybody in admin here at the district that I've never been able to or that's ever said I can't get you an answer on something like that. Everybody's always been so present and so giving and caring and the care about this district. So just grateful for everybody who's part of that team. So you made the motion, trustee.
I made the motion and don't make me repeat it.
And I'm going to second.
Thank you.
So we have a motion from trustee Otmar, a second from me, student advisory vote. Board, all in favor? Oh, no.
I think it has to be
Roll
a roll call. Yes, so we already have student advisory. Thank you. President Swanson.
Aye.
Trustee Dr. Hazen.
Yes.
Trustee Otmar.
Aye.
Trustee McNary.
Aye.
And trustee Swanson.
Aye.
Fabulous. Passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Chief Rogaman, for presenting. And thanks to all the admin team too. So with that, now I think we are moving on to, are we on item G? No? All right, so now we're on G, declaration of need for fully qualified educators. Again, Chief Rogaman.
I promise I'll share the podium. The declaration of need for fully qualified educators is always brought forward to the board. And what it does is it lays the groundwork in case there's a situation that would arise during the school year where we might need to get an emergency credential, or we might need to hire a teacher who is from out of state and hasn't had a chance to get their cross-cultural language acquisition certificate. So what we do is we bring this item before the board. And what it does is it allows us to hire people on an emergency certificate if that need arises. And so what we've identified is that we've got the Cladden English Learner authorization, and we request 3 just in case we need to hire someone from out of state. We also have requested 1 resource specialist, just because special education teachers are hard to find and hard to hire. If there is some kind of an emergency that came up during the year, we would want to be able to possibly hire someone on an emergency credential if that need arose. Multiple subject, we have 1 just in case we have a mid-year vacancy at the elementary level. And then we're going to request 3 single subjects in social science because we currently have someone that's on an intern credential. Music, because just our past experience has shown that at times we need to hire a music teacher in the middle of the year, and then industrial and tech ed, because we have 1 teacher who is getting their CTE credential currently during the school year. So that sort of lays the groundwork for this request. And I'm happy to field any questions from the board.
Thank you very much. Let's first go out to public comment. Anybody online? No one? Anyone in the room with public comment on this item? Seeing no one dashing to the podium, let's go to our student rep. Nothing there. And the remainder of the board, anybody who's seen this? Pretty much every year we see this, right? Yes. All right, so seeing no questions from the board and no public comment, let's see if we can find a motion.
I'll make a motion.
All right.
I'll second.
We have a motion from trustee McNary and a second from trustee Otmar. All in favor, student advisory vote. In favor, all right.
Aye.
Remainder of the board, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing no opposition, we pass it unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Chief, on that. And moving on now to item H, budget revisions. Number 1 for fiscal year 2024-25.
Thank you, President Swanson. So we do this every year when developing the adopted budget last year in June. There's quite a few things that are not reconciled at that time. So we are developing, our concerted best effort at putting a budget together. So we do the budget revision in October every single year. There's quite a few things that go into the budget revision. I'm going to highlight them. They're on the cover page, but I think it's important to read aloud. All positions in our position control have been completed. All reassignments and reclassifications have been reconciled since the adopted budget. Oftentimes after an adopted budget, we don't have positions filled, so which helps us with step and column and so forth. Current vacancies have been reviewed by the district. Our LCFF revenues and our LCFF revenue calculator projections are current to and consistent with our current ADA. And of course, the ADA is our attendance, not necessarily our enrolled number of students. Revenue limit transfer to adult education is now realigned to the 2023-24 actuals. Our federal and state revenue projection allocations are reviewed and updated. All positions with stipended add-ons are updated to link the sub-object type. I know that's a business kind of gobbledygook, but it's very important that we have our sub-object codes realigned correctly related to stipends. And oftentimes we see that throughout the year when we add stipended positions, it's not done correctly in our SACS coding. So that's realigned. The avid budget, just for one example here, was updated for programmatic need. There was no avid budget in the adopted budget. The components of ending fund balance have been updated to reflect the assignment accuracy, and those were just posted by the county. We wait for the county to post all of our beginning fund balances until October. So when we adopt a budget in June, we're kind of working off of an anticipated beginning fund balance, but those have been posted. All budget transfer requests for sites have been posted. Professional development budget has been updated for curriculum team with additional new hire information. And many of our grants have been updated. Educator effectiveness budget is now current and updated based on the actual need. A couple of another highlights here, and then I'll move on to the spreadsheet. Both resource 6762, that's the music arts discretionary resource, and the district put a freeze on that last year. That's a 4-year block grant, and it is discretionary, but we had to put a freeze on it because the legislature was talking about the potential clawback to use that for COLA last year. I did talk about that through my first and second interim, but we did receive a little bit of clawback, but it did give us a beginning fund balance. So we then posted a budget similar to that 6770. That's formerly Prop 28. The board approved an expenditure plan last year for this year, but we actually then realized at the end of the school year, we were able to realize at the end of the school year the actual revenue received by the state, and then we had to delineate that revenue into expense site by site. That's all reflective in the budget revision that you're seeing tonight. I will bring you to the second page. I know that's a lot of numbers. I'm going to try to talk everyone through this, but first page, I'm sorry, Lewis. So what I proposed here tonight, instead of doing kind of a PowerPoint, which I tend to do often, is attack this from a little bit different angle. And really, this is just your adopted to budget revision comparison broken out by object. So we start out at the top, which is our 1000s. That's our certificated staff. Before that, we have our revenue. The only change to revenue that we have this year is our adopted budget based our ADA on P2, and that was our enrollment and attendance P2 period. So last year, right? So since then, we've had additional students enrolled, right? Our enrollment went up by about 64 students this year. So we had to adjust our ADA baseline for that based on enrollment, and because the enrollment went up, the revenue went up. So we did have a small change from P2 to current CBEDS data, which actually the report came out just today. A very small amount there changed. On the expenditure side in the 1000s, overall, you can see there was a reduction, a very small reduction in the 1000s, but I want to preface it by saying we anticipated over a $690,000 reduction in our 1000s. There was a few things that went into this, a few factors. One of them was the 8-period master schedule at the high school. We anticipated through the SERP, we were going to reduce in force some of the retired positions. Instead, due to the master schedule, we ended up with 11.2 FTE add-ons at the high school, which really equates to 2 new positions plus 1 section. So that wasn't considered in the adopted budget. We added a third kinder class at Robert Down, a second TK class at Forest Grove. And all of that basically played into why we're only seeing a negligible a negligible offset there. In reality, we were looking for around $690,000 reduction in that area. So due to the loss of expenditures through mitigation, really it's a $535,195 impact, even though that it shows that we are lower than the adopted budget. Similarly, in the 2000s, the district staff, we had anticipated $132,655 reduction in the 2000s, again, associated with the SERP reduction in force. And by adding the TK class and the kinder class, we added some instructional aides back into the budget, and that did yield an overall increase of around $26,000 instead of the $132,000 reduction we would have anticipated in the 2000s. On the employee benefits side, we can note the impacts of collective bargaining, specifically with CSEA. The district contribution or the cap is now being applied to vision and dental. That was previously not applied. So in the CSEA contract, which was negotiated out, you had to have a medical plan to subscribe to vision and dental cap application. So if you don't have a medical plan, the district's contribution would not apply to vision and dental for you. That's changed. And you can see that, and that's reflective in the increase in expenditures. The remaining increase is primarily due to plan coverage changes. So when we make changes to the district cap, both for PGTA and CSEA, we raise the cap amount, the district contribution. That rolls us into open enrollment. And now that the cap is getting higher and closer to one of our, like the PPO 40, which is what we are striving to get close to, during open enrollment, you see more folks try to opt in, right? Because that makes sense because the district contribution is higher. So overall, there's around a $447,000 increase in the 3000s in our health and welfare. Under our 4000s, which are the books and supplies, primary changes are due to adding budgets that were not included in the adopted budget. I mentioned two of them earlier, 6770, which was our Prop $28, and 6762 music arts discretionary. They just were not in the adopted budget at all. So we didn't have revenue, we didn't have expenditures. Both resources have now been updated in the budget to match our district allocations. And the overall increase of the 4000s is $322,841. And if you're following along online, it's really what we're talking about here is the far right-hand column. All the way to the right is the delta, the difference between the adopted budget and the budget revision I'm bringing forward tonight. The 5000s, that's our services and other. At the adopted budget, the SERP payment was included in what's called my placeholder account. It wasn't properly budgeted in the adopted budget. So that's a pretty big chunk. That's around $399,000 in the 5000s. The remaining increase was due to professional consulting services and professional development contracts through district and board initiatives. The overall increase to the 5000s was $535,348 over the adopted budget. 6000s and 7000s, there's really no major change. However, in a year where we're again talking about structural deficit spending, I think that this is a time where the board may want to consider, and there's no direction I'm looking for tonight because we do the transfers out at the end of the year, but the district may, or the board may want to consider a potential freeze on the unrestricted general fund contribution to Fund 14 and 40. That's been very helpful in building up our ending fund balance and funding projects under capital outlay and deferred maintenance. However, in a structural deficit, which continues to climb, that may be a consideration we make at first or second interim. Nothing has to be done tonight because we do this at the end of the year. The summary of deficit spending for us right now, at the adopted budget, we had $683,590 in a deficit. You can see that in the red on the left-hand side. And what we're bringing forward tonight in the budget revision 1 is an additional $817,222 for a total of $1.5 million, just over $1.5 million in deficit for the projected year. Second page, Lewis. On the second page, we have a side-by-side comparison of our components of ending fund balance. And if you're following along online, that's page 277 in the board packet. The beginning balances have been updated via the unaudited actuals. You can note the changes in the beginning fund balances from the adopted budget to budget revision. Adopted budget had just over $6.6 million in a beginning fund balance. And due to lowering of our expenditures over the 23-24 year, we ended up with just over $8.4 million in our beginning fund balance. It's just over $2 million change to the beginning fund balance for this year, 24-25. So that's very good. You can note the increase in the projected revenue that I discussed earlier, and that's related to ADA changes since P2 in the spring of 2024. Of course, note the increase to projected expenditures that was discussed previously in detail. And then the projected deficit again there at budget revision 1 of 1,500,812. You'll see that the 24-25 ending fund balance is projected to be higher, which helps us maintain a better reserve. What you will see also are some substantial changes in the components of ending fund balance. I think that's line 8. The components of ending fund balance is where we assign things to hold them throughout the year. One being the restricted assigned amount is much higher in budget revision 1 than it was in the 24-25 adopted. That assignment holds restricted revenue carryover from the 24-25 year, the 25-26 year. But it also reduces we're holding over more dollars in the restricted side, but that's less money being held in assignments on the unrestricted side, which then lowers the district's reserve by 1%, which is what is reflected here in budget revision 1. So the adopted budget had us at 9.7%, and now we are reflecting an 8.7% reserve. Some other changes that were made to clean up the assignments. We were carrying 2 line items in the components of ending fund balance for basic aid reserve. We eliminated one of them and just lumped everything into one. It is a basic aid reserve, and you can see that there is 1,929,47. Previously, you saw a basic aid reserve and a property tax reserve, which is one and the same thing. And they were just separated. So we combined them out, cleaned things up a little bit more. You can see we transferred in $175,000 in an assignment to the STRS and PERS assignment. Now that is associated with the board's prior approval, and I'm going back 2 years, of Resource 6762. That was the Music Arts Discretionary Block Grant that my predecessor brought forward, and there was an assignment for $175,000 to go into our components of ending fund balance to hold for STRS and PERS increases. Since I've been here, we didn't move that into an assignment because, again, last year we weren't certain what the governor was going to do with that resource. If there was a clawback the year prior, we didn't have all of the realized revenue yet. But now is a good time because we know what revenue we have, we know how long we have to spend it, and the board approved the $175,000 in 21-22 to be moved in to the STRS and PERS reserve. So you can see that's been moved in there to increase the STRS and PERS reserve assignment. Total assigned over adopted budget is higher, but the increase is attributed to restricted assignments in the components of ending fund balance. So the changes from the adopted budget revision are substantive enough, as I mentioned earlier, for the district to take a comprehensive look at our projected expenditures for the next 2 subsequent years. The superintendent and cabinet have been actively identifying educational priorities, including programs that may require budget reductions. The administration will collaborate with the middle school and the high school to address the master scheduling concerns. Additionally, we're going to assess programs such as ESSER and CARES Act, which are our federal and our state relief one-time funded restricted programs, to understand their overall impact, which is contributing to our structural deficit. And by that, what I mean is, there were many positions that were funded through CARES Act and ESSER that were carried forward and now are an obligation of the general fund to pick up. These are very important programs for our student population. We all know that, but that is an impact. It's a substantive impact to the general fund, and the board was aware of that. We've been talking about that for some time now. One example was the mental health therapists, but there has been others. So during the 25-26 budget development process, which we're going to start very early this year, we normally start budget development sometime in February to March. We're starting budget development in December this year. We're really going to drill down and look at a number of different things that are contributing to the structural deficit in this district. A couple of those items are enrollment by site and by grade level to ensure our class sizes align with our collective bargaining agreements. And then finally, it's essential for PGUSD to address this ongoing structural deficit. It's been depleting the reserve for economic uncertainty for some time now. We all know that statutorily that's a 3% reserve. But to look at our historicals, at one point back in 2017, the district was around a 17% reserve. And now we're hovering just under 9%, is I think something we really need to start taking seriously. I know that the board does take this seriously. I certainly am. We tend to rely heavily on an expenditure problem being resolved by increased revenue because we're a basic aid district, but that has not been realized. Even in the first year that I started here, we saw an 8.9% increase in revenue, and we are still realizing deficit spending because of our overall increase in expenditures. I'm not asking for any direction tonight from the board as it relates to any reductions. Again, not anything related to the freeze on the transfers out, but I think it's something that we need to have a conversation about at first interim this year. And that's the end of my presentation. I'll open it up for comment.
All right, thank you for that. First, we need to go out for public comment. Is there anybody online? Public comment? No. Anybody in the room? Not seeing anybody. Let's now go to our student rep. Any thoughts? Okay. To our board members, anyone with a comment?
May I start?
Yes.
I had a few quick questions. Thank you for presenting this again so cleanly, so clearly, even with some of the economic concerns presented. The one thing we discuss a lot is the concern or the issues with decreasing enrollment, right? There's something we're like, it's decreasing. If we have increasing enrollment though, because we're basic aid, we have more of a need, which actually will cost us more money long term. So if we go back to numbers that we had, 5, 10, probably more like 10 or 15 years ago, that will result in more cost and potentially more deficit spending. Is that correct?
The real focus this district needs to key in on is attendance. So ADA we're only receiving ADA in our TK and kinder population primarily. But that's the most substantive part. But district attendance, that percentage affects that ADA. So overall district attendance percentage, which we're at 92.7%, affects that ADA. If we were to, for example, we looked at this, if we were to increase our attendance by 1%, that equates to around $250,000 in additional revenue. 2%, 500,000. That's pretty substantive. So we will be bringing some discussion points through our board policy committee and looking at various things. One of which is independent study, for example. We have a policy on it, but that would actually help drive revenue for the TK and kinder students up.
Right.
By a potential percentage point.
Right. No, that's great. That's great. And I mean, I guess that's in parallel. What I was also implying though is that if we have more students, we need more sections, right? Just by definition, and that's something we don't get properly reimbursed by the state.
That's correct.
So that's why just because we always talk about the declining enrollment is a problem. Well, we're fixing it, but that also comes potentially with a bit of a cost to our district. So the other question I was just going to ask on that is is there any hope? And I read my CSBA emails, any hope for new state funds? Like, are we seeing some recognition from the state that this continuance is important? Maybe after the election year, I don't know.
I mean, what we've seen at like Prop 28 was big. That's ongoing. Resource 6770 for arts and VAPA, that's big. ELOP is an ongoing program that's state funded.
Right, but new ones.
Yeah, no. So there's just nothing on the horizon from the federal government right now. There just isn't. And I've been talking about this for the last 2 years. This is going to be kind of a dip in revenue year for this district, not just for our district, every district. I mean, this district took about a $2 million hit in revenue from restricted revenues, right, collectively. So that's something that we have to address. Many districts did away with programs that were tied to restricted funds. I mean, this district was very good at not supplanting of expenditures, but coming up with creative ways to use these dollars so as to when the dollars run out, to try to keep those programs moving forward. We were very good at doing that, but there were some areas that we had to make a decision as to what was the best thing for our student population, and we chose to maintain those expenditures as an impact to the general fund, and that's what we're seeing here. But I also think we're seeing the very positive impacts in the classroom and with our student population and with mental health. And so that's, I think that the district should be applauded for that, because a lot of the districts around us did away with those programs.
Agreed. And I just want to echo that last point you made, that again, the programming for the students, I mean, that's why we're here. That's what we're doing. So I'm glad we're keeping those on. And you have done an excellent job, as you mentioned, preparing us for this year. But now we're here. So yeah, we'll be working on this throughout the rest of the fiscal year, I'm sure. Thank you.
So that was one of my questions as well, was enrollment and state funding. And so anyway, because we're basic aid. So I mean, as we're discussing this, I start thinking that this may be very simplistic, but sort of if there's an attendance issue with TK and kinder, it's district wide, but if the money is focused in those two lower grades, if we can brainstorm creative ways to support families to get their kids here, because some of it is working parents, it's expensive to live here. And especially as new parents, you're still trying to figure out childcare and so many different things. So I may just be a little Pollyanna about it, but I mean, if there's a way that we can sit and brainstorm to try to get these parents and families support, I mean, that may help, because I don't think the numbers have to go up by that much. We're not that huge of a district. So thank you for bringing that up. I also had a question, and thank you for the presentation, because you really made it super palatable and easy to understand. And yes, we've been prepared, so I don't think that this was a huge shock to anybody that's sitting up here. So thanks for that. I do have a question about on page 277 under basic aid reserve. The dollar amount, I know that, so there's two basic aid reserves, and the dollar amount shifts to zero in both. And I guess I'm trying to understand that, or maybe I'm missing something there.
Yeah, so the property tax reserve and the basic aid reserve is basically placeholder that we use when we're deficit spending.
Okay.
It is an assignment that is not necessarily obligated by a certain percentage to something. So what I did was in this instance, we took the property tax reserve of 165,270, right, combined with the basic aid reserve of at adopted 2,450,254. And you would think, right, that those two numbers would then equate to what you see on the right-hand column, which is 1,929,47.
Mhm.
But that would be the case if we weren't deficit spending. If the district was at a zero-based budget, the deficit spending is pulled from that unrestricted area.
That makes sense to me now. Thank you. That's all I have.
I agree. This was really palatable. Thank you for boiling it all down for us. I really would love us to get away from the idea of deficit spending. We hear it so often, and this, I mean, feels like an opportunity to start having those conversations. I don't see anything here that would prevent me from approving it. So thank you for the information, but just moving forward, I mean, for the board, I would be open to a study session so we can get to know our budget. I appreciate the succinctness of the presentation, but this is, like nitty gritty details and dimes and, 1% equals 250K. Like, what are we choosing to spend our money on? Plus, we don't have the one-time funds, and we can't rely on one-time funds to be able to sustain having a mental health therapist at the middle school, which we know is an essential support for our students. So, getting creative, let's come up with some ideas and let's start to have those conversations. So thank you for bringing it to our attention so clearly. So that's it.
Hello, Josh. First of all, thank you for being here on your child's birthday.
Yeah.
That's not easy, especially when they're at a certain age where they know you're not there. So I really appreciate that. I have a couple questions. So we adopted the budget in June for fiscal year July 1 to begin. Now we're here in October. You let us know by listing a variety of areas that increased in expenditure. Were those surprises to you?
The only surprises to me were in the ones and twos because we had anticipated a higher savings there. So from adopted to the budget revision now, I was anticipating much higher savings than we're showing. But at the very same time, and the rationale for the change was over the summer, we had a need for additional program, right? So that's a big component of this. Also associated with that was many other things in the health and welfare side. We didn't at the time of budget development know the full impact of folks opting into new health and welfare benefits, or the entire impact of now the cap can be applied to vision and dental, even if you don't have a medical plan. We tried to quantify that during negotiations, but we didn't know the full impact until we went through open enrollment, which we don't normally do in the summer, but we did this summer go through open enrollment because we had such a high increase to cap. So I would say that on the health and welfare side, I wasn't as surprised because I really couldn't quantify it well because there was that variable of not knowing how many people were going to opt in. On the salaries side for the ones and twos, it was a shock for me.
Thank you. As far as we did the SERP, which was the first time our district had done that in many years. The anticipation for the SERP was that I think it was over a 5-year period, we would save $5 million, $1 million. What was it? 1.5 million. Thank you. $1.5 million. So we're not that far into it. Help me feel at ease. Does this current update bode unwell for us reaching that 1.5 million savings?
It doesn't, it bodes well for it still. I just think that our savings are going to be less than anticipated. We still will realize savings, not 1.5.
Boo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes me more nervous. Okay. Chronic absenteeism, that's a creative approach to try to find more money. I'm in favor of that. I think that goes along with our equity, belonging, prosperity, safety. There's so many reasons that we don't even realize why kids are chronically absent. So I'd love to dig into that. And I love that you're acknowledging that that is something that takes place in PG. I think a lot of times people think that we're an affluent community, so we don't have certain things happening at home and in family lives for our kids, and we do. So thank you for that. And I would not in the future be in favor of taking away any money from Fund 14 and 40 on a regular basis. I'm somebody who likes to have a little savings continuing to happen, almost like pay ourselves first, figure out the rest. It's tricky in a district we're paying. I mean, all of us are ourselves, right? Staff included. Are we doing anything to address the known increase and continuation of increase for STRS and PERS?
Well, what we've done this year is we've tried to increase that assignment to cover the increase to STRS and PERS. I mean, fortunately, STRS has been flat for some time now, 19.1%. PERS has been, I mean, there's projections to where we're going to see a 30%. I mean, right now we're at 27.1 with PERS. So that is something that this district needs to take a look at. And I think that the district started out by putting an assignment in the components of any fund balance to address that. But the reality is that might be 1 year's worth of an increase, right? So I think that's something we do need to look at in the future. The projected PERS increase is nominal this year. I think it's 27.1 to 27.6. I have to go back and look at the dartboard. But if we had a year where it was 1%, for example, I mean, that would wipe out that component of ending fund balance assigned reserve for that increase. Absolutely. Another issue we have in our district, as well as every district around us, is the cost of health and welfare. And I'll say it tonight that our district is taking that seriously. Starting in January, we're going to do a comparative analysis of any provider in the area that can provide our employees with health and welfare benefits at a potential reduced cost. So we're looking at that starting in January.
Okay. An idea possibly for the future for staff to explore. I worked for a company that was similar. And they had their own health clinic to address things like ear infections and, whatever. And they saved a lot of money with that. And so that's something that maybe we could look into is being a little more self-sufficient when it comes to the everyday challenges. I know Kaiser is coming, can't come fast enough, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of Kaiser. So I'm hoping that brings us some relief as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we knew this was coming eventually, right? It's like, and we just didn't know exactly when, and now here it is. I think the suggestion that there's a study session to go deeper on this is a great one. We should try to figure out when that could happen because it's banging on the door now. I'm so concerned about the reserve, thinking back again to those days when we were, 14, 17%, where you knew that it's like, oh, if things went sideways, we could weather those storms. And I'd look at like Carmel and they're in the 23, 25%. It's like, we don't have that luxury at all anymore. So I would love to dive deeper on a study session and look at all these ideas. It's like, yeah, maybe there is something we can do healthcare wise right here, for the community too. But I think there's a lot to talk about. So I know right now this is just a snapshot, but it's also a warning flag. Here it comes. So thank you for all the news. So any other board comments? Carolyn, yes.
I have a quick one just for anyone like riveted by this as much as I am following from home or here. So in our district overview, it's this 1-page document, it's so great. And so in the past 5 years, reserve wise, we had from 18-19 was 12.1%, then 12.8%, 14.2, 14.7, 13.2. And now October update, right? We're not saying this is unaudited actuals or actuals. Now it's about 8.7. So it's a foot. It's a foot. Thank you.
So any other,
I just want to take another moment to say thank you for making this so super digestible. Is it the news you wanted to bring? No, but you work so hard and you're doing a phenomenal job. And I just want to take in this moment where it's probably not what you wanted to present to just say, I really appreciate you. I think we all really appreciate you. And, I firmly believe that we'll pull through this because we're very resilient. And no, it doesn't feel good, but this isn't where it ends. These are not unaudited actuals. These are not actuals. And I really believe as a community together, we can figure something out. I firmly believe that.
we will. So any other board comments?
Just one more quick one to pile on a little bit, but because this is a chance for us to discuss as a board, I mean, I think we are, at least in my understanding of our discussions, we're aligning on this concern. So we should be careful on fiscal, costs on when we propose something new. There's something just I'm saying as a whole, but we just want to start thinking a little more about how this is going to affect this reserve and be a little more, tightening of the purse string, so to speak, as a whole. I'm sure we'll have to make those decisions, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, certainly. Great. Thank you. All right. So this is.
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like to sit up here and take that kind of credit. I appreciate the kudos, but we have a really amazing fiscal team. I mean, I don't just say that. We're very fortunate to have the folks that work for us in this district. I have a phenomenal new fiscal officer that just took over. Her and her team and myself kind of gutted through this, so to speak, right? And there's a lot that goes into preparing for a budget revision on the application side, getting everything resolved within Escape, our financial management system. So no, I appreciate that. And I am the one delivering the message, but a lot of this work is done in the background in collaboration with a great team, accounts payable, payroll, our entire fiscal team, human resources. And I think they need that credit as well. So I wanted to leave you with that.
Great. Thank you. All right. So this is an action discussion item. It is item H. And so we've already gone through public comment and board discussion. Now we're looking for a motion and a second to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the October budget revision.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from trustee Dr. Hazen and a second from trustee Otmar. Student rep vote. Approved. Okay, great. Remainder of the board, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously. Let's move on now to action discussion. Item I, proposed board calendar. Dr. Adamson.
We're sharing a microphone this evening. We're down one. We're cutting those purse strings.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Everyone sure.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll all be next. All right, sorry, too soon, too soon. Okay. All right, so I am bringing forward our proposed board meeting calendars. I think, the change that I'm proposing at this point, we had kind of discussed it at our last meeting, but we do have a special meeting scheduled for October, goodness, what's the date? Hold on.
24th.
Thank you, 24th. And I'm proposing we remove that from our calendar if the board is in favor of that. I also heard, just the request for a study session and saw a lot of, nodding of heads. And so I don't know if we need to decide that tonight, but I think that would be something I'd like to, confer with Assistant Sup John on. And that would be a perfect sort of future, governance session. So we could either possibly look at November, or is that something even for January?
I
right?
think
In-
January
we
with
bring
the
in
new
our
team.
right,
Yeah.
budget development. Okay. So just know we'll pick a date and we'll bring that forward on our, make sure that we can calendar it on there. So I'm looking over it. There you go. So we'll talk about that as well. So other than that, though, really no, any changes on dates. We've got all of our dates for the new calendar year, 2025 as well. Any comments or questions? And is everyone in approval for the October 24th
We
removal?
need to go the
Public first.
Thank you.
the public, because we're proposing removing again October 24, right? Any public comment on that particular item? Seeing nobody online, anybody in the room? Okay, now moving to the board, student rep. Okay, remainder of the board, any comment?
Just a quick one I wanted to point out because it came up, December 12th is when we're going to get the quarterly facilities project updates. So this is the time when we will be digging into, I think, some of those priorities as well. So just to say, I mean, this is something we do regularly, so it is just good to remind folks that's if you're interested in the Measure D.
A lot to throw at, was there going to be a couple of new board members, right, on December 12th too. So get ready. Because you're going to have to,
It's so easy to start up, right? You just you know exactly what you're doing from day one.
So, okay, any other board comments on this particular item? Otherwise, we need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion on staff's recommendation to remove as is, but to remove October 24th.
And I'm going to second that. So we have a motion from trustee Carolyn Swanson and noted with the October 24th removal, and a second from me, student advisory vote. And we got an aye over there. And to the remainder of the board, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously. Thank you for all that. A quick check-in because does
Can we take
anybody
a
need
break?
a little break?
I could use a break.
5-minute bio break.
Thank you.
All right. And to our student rep, because we know how busy you are, if you need to get out of here, now's your opportunity.
Josh just wants the microphone.
Moving on to information discussion, item A, PGUSD Human Resources Department update. Chief Rogaman.
Thank you so much, President Swanson. It's my pleasure to come here and talk a little bit about the organizational review that was done by the School Services of California in September of 2023. And what we're going to talk a little bit about is the recommendations that they had for our Human Resources Department, and just give an update on the implementation process for those recommendations. The folks that came to visit, one was Danielle Connolly. She's an Associate Vice President of School Services of California, and also Teddy Wentworth, who is an Assistant Director. And they conducted numerous interviews with staff throughout the district at each one of our sites. And they compiled the report that we're referencing here in the presentation, and the results of that report are also available online and in the Human Resources Department webpage. The recommendations that they gave came in three different categories. There was priority one that they had intended to be implemented in 0 to 6 months. They were priority 2 in 6 to 12 months, and then also priority 3, which would be continuous implementation. We are a little bit behind the timelines that they recommended for those three different levels of implementation. And I think that part of that can be attributed to some of the turnover that has occurred in the leadership of the Human Resources Department. I don't think it's any secret that I am the third person to lead the department since this report was done in 2023. And I just have to say, the fact that this many of the items have been implemented to this day is a great credit to the staff that is in the Human Resources Department. Our two personnel specialists, Angela Lippert and Kimberly Ortiz, and then along with our personnel technician, Bree Nearing, do an incredible job executing the operational aspects of human resources. And it is my honor and my pleasure to work with them and to lead the department. So the recommendations that fell under priority one have a significant impact on the department operations. They also impact all of the district's educational partners, and they require significant modifications to increase efficiency. So in a lot of ways, implementing these is going to have an effect that runs through a lot of areas of the district. So these are the reasons why they were listed as priority one. What you'll see on this first slide is a lot of the organizational structure items that were recommended in this report. And all of that has been completed now. So changing the title from a director to Chief Human Resources Officer for the leader of the department has occurred, as well as collapsing the technician personnel specialist role into just a personnel specialist, and then having a full-time tech. All of that has been accomplished in the past couple months. And so that restructuring of the department has occurred. One of the recommendations was that the web page should list the general duties of our HR staff, and that has been done as well. And then to help with the efficiency of handling the complaints that come to the Human Resources Department, the recommendation was for us to implement a log where we could log the dates that we received the complaints, and then the progress that we're making on the investigations that go along with them. So that does exist now. Some of the other things that have been implemented from the priority one recommendations have a lot to do with the personnel action forms, and really helping with the coordination between the human resource side and the business side. And I think that one of the things that our department takes the most pride in right now is just the coordination that we have with the business side of things. The new PAF system of approval has accountability built into it, so that both sides of the well, it's like both sides of the hallway, but both the business and the human resources side have a check process through when we're putting through a personnel action form. So human resources is available of every kind of job adjustment that needs to be made. And so is the business side as well. So if money is going to be spent on personnel, business is very aware of that, and they have to sign off on it before any position modification occurs. And then also looking to monitor the recruitment procedures and eliminate hiring barriers. We are trying to streamline and become more efficient from the time a job gets advertised to when we hold the interviews for the position, turn around the reference checks, and then be able to make an offer to an employee. One of the things that's made that process go faster is allowing our site administrators or hiring managers to do the reference checks when we have a candidate that rises to the top. A couple of things from the priority one area that have not been implemented yet. One is revising the functional organizational chart. So we currently list the duties that we have. What we haven't done is an analysis to see if the duties need to be shifted between members of the department. And so what we have begun doing is having weekly meetings for the HR department. And one of the things that we're going to start to look at is that org chart. So that is going to be addressed soon. One of the other things that we want to do is start to establish standard operating procedures and document those within the department, so that no matter who's leading the department, no matter who comes next, there's going to be written documentation for the standard operating procedures that we're going to do in the department. It sounds like a massive task because it is, but what we want to do is attack maybe 2 of them a week. And if we can attack 2 of our procedures a week and come up with a standard operating procedure for those, then by the end of the year, we're going to have a pretty good group of standard operating procedures for the HR department. The priority 2 recommendations were to be implemented in concert with the priority 1 recommendations. And these really focus on the recruitment and selection processes, and then also trying to eliminate processes that were duplicated within the department, and then also implement systems and procedures using the technology that is available. So when we look at this, one of the things that we want to do is to provide as much professional learning for our HR staff as we can. A good example of that is on Tuesday, there is a credentialing workshop that's going to be held at the Monterey County Office of Education, and our personnel specialists are going to attend that to kind of find the latest updates that the CTC has with regard to credentialing. We also want to standardize the software platforms and provide PD for our staff that's going to be using them. So when we take a process and have it be a tech-based process when it wasn't before, we're going out to the sites and trying to help train the office managers to be able to use the software that's associated with those processes. Looking at our HR and business services, having an improved communication when it comes to our paths, and then to maintain that digital onboarding process. All those things are in effect in HR now. One of the things that we're looking to do is to update the department job descriptions to align with our roles. A lot of that has occurred with the restructuring of the department. We also want to extend that to our work with our CSEA as we look to maybe look at the job descriptions and update those as well. Some of the things that have not been implemented yet is to modify the current complaint practices to alleviate the Chief Human Resources Officer's workload. If there's one thing that I've learned in my first 3 months on this job, it's that the investigation that goes along with a formal complaint really does take a lot of time in preparation for the investigation, the execution of the investigation, and then the summary of the investigation and the findings. Also, the supervisor training to perform the informal inquiries into, employment matters. Our site supervisors have had some training in the past couple of years, but we've had some turnover with our site supervisors, so it's probably time for us to implement a little bit more of that training as well. The procedure documents that are going to be in a shared folder is what we referenced earlier under priority 1. And then also look at a comprehensive recruitment plan and budget. My predecessor did an excellent job of putting together a recruitment plan. With me taking over in the department, I need to review that plan and see if there's any modifications that need to be made, or if we can just kind of move forward with the plan that we have. And then there is another recommendation that the Chief Human Resources Officer put together a communication plan for HR as well. Also, things that have not yet been implemented is to reevaluate the written selection and hiring procedures to ensure consistency. That's going to be part of the standard operating procedures as we go forward. We have tried to make the hiring procedures more consistent. But I think there's still some work that can be done in that area. And then that also says that the recruitment plan should include objectives to increase the diversity in our applicant pools. I've written that into my own personal evaluation that I'll be doing with Dr. Adamson as the year goes on. And finally, the priority 3 recommendations, we're talking about things that could be implemented on a continuous basis. Also assessing our organizational structure, providing staff training, and then building the collaborative prep practices and engagement opportunities for HR. The ones that we've implemented so far is working collaboratively to develop department core values and define its purpose in the district. If you go to our webpage, the mission statement clearly states that really the most important mission that we have is staffing our schools with talented individuals that are going to deliver a high quality educational program for our students. Also using an annual calendar and ensure that it meets the timelines that are required. We have a calendar that's going to be a topic of discussion at each one of our weekly meetings to make sure that we're meeting the deadlines that are identified in the calendar. We're going to look back at the previous month and look forward to the next month. We also have examples of calendars that are used in other districts, so we can see if there's any adjustments that need to be made to ours. Also, site administration must receive ongoing treatment on the recruitment and selection procedures. We want to make sure that our hiring managers at the sites kind of have the same lens when it comes to those fundamentals of the hiring procedures that we use. Also, we want to utilize strategic practices which encourage employment in special education. One of the things that we do is we've made a requirement for our para educators to have a college degree. That way, if they're really effective paras, one of the things that we've seen is that it enters their mind that wouldn't it be great to be a special ed teacher? And we've had a couple of our paras enter, teacher preparation programs and then go on to be special ed teachers. So that's one of the steps that we're taking in a strategic manner to try to increase the special educators. What we haven't implemented yet is tracking and maintaining an employee hiring and attrition data. Angela Lippert is going to take that on as a project. So I expect that to be implemented very soon, because when Angela says she's going to do something, she gets it done. And that kind of gives you an update on the recommendations that came with the report and what we've been able to implement as a human resources department. And I'm happy to hear any comments.
Great. Thank you for that. First, we need to go out for public comment. Anybody online? Nobody online? Any public comment in the room? Not seeing any. Let's go to the board. And right to further right. Let's start with trustee Dr. Hazen.
Just to say thank you for, implementing these. I know that this is a difficult process. I'm excited for the digitization for a lot of reasons. So again, thanks for getting this done and working with the department in your new role to do so.
Thank you. Trustee Elmore.
Ditto, exactly that. This is not an easy job to do, but this was laid out very well, and just thank you for the hard work.
Happy to do it. Thanks.
Yeah, the HR department clearly has a lot going on. I think always, and then we added new tasks, but some of the things you mentioned really speak to why this review was so important. We have a complaint log for staff now. Things that sound so simple, like a calendar for deadlines. If we didn't have it, I don't want to think about that, but I'm excited that we're standardizing and we're creating procedures so that if for whatever reason we end up on another director of HR for some reason, we have procedures and we have things memorialized so that we have systems. So I really appreciate that we're coming online and we're doing that extra work to create those systems. I guess my only question would be kind of how far along are we in terms of the recommendations, and when do we get the next exciting update?
Some of the recommendations were further along than others. With the restructuring, like the actual physical, like restructuring is done. So that's complete. Like I think for it to be done in spirit as well as action, that functional organizational chart really needs to be looked at and gather the input of the team and then kind of have my vision and decide as we go along, what's the most efficient way to do what we're doing. Because one of the things that we want to do is we want to be able to move as efficiently as possible for the sites. So when they're hiring a person, that they don't feel like they have to wait forever to get the person to come and do the job. And as a site principal, I understand like that feeling. And yet at the same time, we have to go through processes just to make sure that the decision that we make to hire an employee is one that's sound on all fronts. And so there's a balance. We want to be efficient and get the folks hired for the sites, but at the same time, we don't want a mistake that we're going to have to try to fix on the back end.
That's why the systems, because we're all following the same checklist. I love it. Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm incredibly uneasy with this entire process. I'm glad it's starting to happen, but the idea that some of these things haven't been in place is it's hard for me. I'm glad you're moving forward. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation, of course. I love that it's like when I think about over the last few years, it's like there have been issues and trying to figure out just how we do it. How do we, concerns about us losing applicants because it took too long for us to do background checks and things like that, and seeing that that's addressed. Seeing at the end here too, I mean, I know we haven't implemented it yet, but that it's like we're taking a look at attrition. Why do we lose some people, especially in a district like this? But I'm glad that there's so many things that are in here and that they're being addressed. And I mean, there's nothing more expensive, when I think about what we do here, it still is a business. There's nothing more expensive than turnover. It's the most expensive thing. And if we're looking at that, finding a way to, again, make sure we're hiring the best people and keeping the best people, it's all a process. It all takes time. And now at least there is a document that we can follow, and that there are steps that are being put into place to help move it along. So I'm grateful for it. Again, I understand it takes time. But I'm glad that we're moving in that direction. I'm very optimistic.
Me too.
So, any other board comments? Okay, so that is an information discussion item. It does not require any action on the board's part. So thank you again, Chief Rogeman. We are now going to move on to info discussion. Item B, PGUSD, summary of NSPRA's communication report. Dr. Adamson.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And so, yes, I'm really delighted to be able to share this information out this evening. This has been something that has, been forthcoming. We received the official report back in the summer. And so it's really been the ability for us to be able to, put this together and now be able to share this out with you as the board. And ultimately at the end, I'll share with you, but I think our, idea is we want to also think about how we can make this sort of public as well. The wonderful thing when I met with the executive committee who did the report and shared out the results with me, they gave me some great examples of what other districts have done who recently went through this as well, and how they reported it out and how they made that information available. That was helpful too for me and us as a cabinet, as we also identified what our next steps are going to be based on the recommendations that they've given. So if I could ask for the presentation to be posted, it's the NSPRA communications review. Thank you so much, Lewis. I'll kind of just start on slide 2, I think, go straight to that. So I think, the first piece of this, just to give a little bit of background, a little bit of introduction, what is this? Who is NSPRA? So, I'll kind of just start by answering a few of those questions. So NSPRA stands for the National School Public Relations Association. And, I'm going to, just begin by, I think, giving the kudos to the board, because I think the request really came from you back in the
I think it was the spring and the summer of 2023, to have this review and audit of the communications, system and process that we follow as a district. And so, in the report that's given, INSPA really kind of gives that credit, already, to the district, to the board for already, reaching out and, identifying the need for, for just, I think, references and resources, right? And for someone to come in, it's an external, audit company who comes in and kind of, does this process, and we get to learn, from that as a result. It's a completely sort of, unbiased, right? Entity. So I think that's the first piece, that's we contracted with them. And it really is, it's an independent review of the school district's communication efforts. And they took the time through a variety of different sources, which we'll talk about, to really survey and connect with and get engaged and feedback from both employees and then parents and families of the district. And ultimately, the review itself identifies strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, right, to improve. And that's ultimately, and I think that's the part, I think for me as a superintendent, for us as a cabinet, for our site leaders, as a district, office, component, I think for even, you as a board, communication, we know everything starts and ends with that. And so for us to be able to have this information and this feedback, it really helps us sort of identify, what our, future needs are. What I love about the timing of this was when, receiving this information, we had also it was on the heels of completing our LCAP process, all of our engagement sessions, our surveys that we did with the community, with our students, with our staff. And ultimately what I saw was a lot of alignment in what the information we were able to actually, glean from that we gathered, that we presented to you as a board in June, of this year. Very much a lot of that aligns. So I think that was really good and helpful to see. So ultimately, those 3 bullets, it's an analysis of the district and school level communications materials, the district website, and the social media. So that was one of the components that they used to determine their report and their feedback. And, just some examples of what they did. They took materials such as the weekly break newsletter, which was what was in place at the time, the, employee handbook, the parent handbook, not the employee, their parent handbook was something that they looked at. And then, just additional materials that were provided. But those were 2 really solid examples that gave them a really nice idea. They looked at online materials. They even went so far as to look at, board materials and how, we're communicating that. So again, just a lot of that feedback and material. They did a quantitative research. The quantitative research was conducted through surveying of district staff and parent guardians. A total of 500 responses were received. That survey was actually sent out in between September and October of last year, so of 2023. And then they also did a qualitative research through focus groups and interviews with district staff and parents and guardians. That occurred in between February and March of 2024. And so again, that gives you an idea. So it's an interesting timing, knowing that the survey went out right at the beginning of last school year, and then the focus groups, the interviews were conducted sort of towards the sort of in spring, right, coming towards the end of the school year. So it was interesting to kind of get a sense of what the feedback there was. I just remind us too of the timing of all of this when, obviously when that survey went out, to think back to where, I'll say we, but really you as a district were at the time, right? It really was on the heels of the resignation of, Superintendent Porras. You had an pretty incredible interim superintendent who was kind of doing 2 jobs at the time. So I think that factored in as well. And then, I keep us back to some of the events that you were dealing with as a district at that time. Really was this time last year, October. And, then what I recall too is, fresh on the heels of my even starting right on November 3rd, we had the challenge of quite a few safety, incidents. And so it was interesting because a lot of the input and feedback that we received really highlighted a lot of those, challenges that we were facing and dealing with as a district. So very helpful. The next slide really, it gives 3 bullets as to what the audit itself is, right? So it's a comprehensive assessment of current communication efforts and the effectiveness of the overall program. It'll give us a snapshot of current perceptions about our schools, our district, and our leadership. And you'll see that predicted in sort of the score report, card that I've included in one of the slides, which really gives a nice snapshot of that. And then it's a tool that provides baseline research to evaluate progress and a framework for developing our communication plan. And you'll see that is in fact one of the recommendations that the audit review and the committee gives is for the development of a communication plan. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more. And the results of the process were shared in 3 ways. So, number one, they looked at the key findings, and that really gives you the details of what was learned through the review of the materials and analysis of both the qualitative and the quantitative data. And they then gave us a component of the benchmarking of the results, and that was really through what they refer to as the scope survey questions. So that's really questions that were, asked for respondents to respond on a scaled, in a scaled manner. So it was a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest positive rating, 1 being the lowest. And then ultimately recommendations. And so the recommendations, obviously, that comes directly from the executive team, through NSPRA, of what they suggest that our next steps need to be based on what they've learned. So, the first component that they provide in the executive report is the key strengths of the current communication program. So, I've kind of just copied and pasted exactly what they had there, in the report. I think it's really helpful and beneficial for this purpose. So the first one being that, again, what they identified as strengths, and this was from the feedback that they received both in the survey and the interview sessions, that, there's definitely communication happening with a variety of our stakeholders. A variety of tools and techniques were being used, and they identified e-newsletters, text messages, email, automated phone calls, district and school websites, social media, and in-person meetings. There was definitely that feedback came through. So that came through as a positive. There was definite, positive feedback on the Board of Trustees, having demonstrated your commitment, right, to two-way communication with a set of policies and regulations. They were very much impressed with the feedback that came back from the fact that, yes, we have policies in place, and, reference the updated strategic plan with an emphasis on enhancing communication. So there was, definitely, I think, acknowledgement of the fact that that's been identified as a priority. The majority of employees and parents find district communication to be clear, accurate, easy to understand, and trustworthy. While that is definitely a positive that came through, you'll see, though, it's also an area of challenge as well, right, in various areas. And then again, this was more probably just because of the focus interviews, that was another piece, that having a new superintendent, they definitely had felt there was a focus of time on new communications initiatives. And, I attribute that to really kind of the feedback that, one of my priorities, you'll recall, coming in was to, really do those listen and learn tours. Really there was a lot of feedback that was coming in, through that. But then it was also, the timing on that too was wonderful, in the sense that we were starting our LCAP, input sessions, and our cultural proficiency, inputs and engagement sessions as well. So there was just a lot of opportunity, right, to sort of engage with, hear from, and then, my putting out my goals, right? I mean, I know that was one of the goals as a result of the feedback, that we got, was the need to give sort of more regular, consistent communication. It means that it could be an expected, and so again, that'll come out, in what we've already done. Those are the strengths that were identified. The key challenges, right, that, I think the report focuses on, definitely lacks a strategic communication plan, and a staff position to oversee its implementation. So you'll see that's the first recommendation they give at the end is, the need to identify, their recommendation is to have one solid identified person who's in charge of and responsible for communications. In larger districts, you'll see that we've, had conversations about that, having that public relations, specialist, who really their sole purpose is you're often working with the superintendent, with cabinet, to really be in charge of that communications piece of it, right? Getting, messaging out, but also highlighting and showcasing, the things, the programs that are occurring, at the district level. So that's definitely there. Again, I think we are such a small district, I think we don't really see the possibility, and I think is that reasonable right now? Not really, and we'll talk about that when, I kind of go through some of the steps we've already taken. But I think we're all in agreement with the fact that, yes, having that as sort of an identified person. And again, I go back to the timing on when this information was gathered, right? I think the district was in such a state of transition and flux. And so it really, there wasn't, sort of ability to be one identified. You had, I think your Assistant Superintendent John kind of managing a lot of different responsibilities. I think once that stability was there and you had, my coming in, I see that as really the sole charge of the superintendent in you're working with, with your cabinet, in taking that on. And so would I, love an additional person? Would we as a cabinet love an additional person to take that on? Absolutely. But, once again, on the heels of where we are budget wise, right? I think in the immediate future, that's not an option. So, but we have other options available to us. And I think that comes in with our, future planning on how we're going to address that. Based on comments in the focus groups and from the scope survey, parents find that the district communications come from too many sources. That was definitely something that came through. They're too long, frequently repetitive, which results in important information being missed. I think at the time it was the weekly, oh goodness, what was the newsletter? The weekly break newsletter. And I think what we found, and if you'll recall how the format of that was, it was sort of, we were including sort of the newsletters from each of the school sites, and then there were a lot of flyers. And I think everyone just kind of talked about it. It was the same thing every week, so people weren't even reading it, right? There was never any, anything really new and fresh. And so some of the feedback in the focus interview groups came at, March 4th, I think, was the first distribution of the new superintendent's Monday message, which now comes out, twice a month. And there was definitely a sense, and even, NSPRA kind of, looked at that and gave really constructive feedback on the fact of looking at, the breakdown of that. The fact that there's a cadence to that and a predictability, right, I think is really what the feedback was from them, that's a positive thing, right, and that it's always fresh, new information. So that'll be something we definitely, take and, are implementing in how we communicate things and moving forward. But that's, important for us to remember. Parents and employees report being poorly informed on important topics such as major decisions by district leaders, district budget and finances, and major goals and objectives. So, again, I think that's, interesting, there as far as it's good, feedback for us kind of knowing. And I think even if we look at, really the last year and how, we are, really communicating, even comments from you as the board this evening, right, as fresh as that. I think just making sure in our ability as a cabinet, constantly talking about how we're getting that information out. Is it available? Is it accessible on the website? We, want to, keep that at the forefront as we, make those decisions and give that information out. And then really the last one, the district's use of social media lacks coherence and a sense of purpose, and it remains a largely untapped source. What they noted is, our, various social media sites. We've got and I think it's, there's an Instagram page, there's a Facebook page, but really what happens is often it's the messages that we're sending out via Catapult are just being repeated on there. And I'll mention that in our current pieces, we haven't really addressed that piece yet. I think that's a definite, exciting, next step that we can take to, really think about how, we can just, re-envision that a little bit and revive it. So again, just really good feedback there. I love this slide because I think it was a snapshot that they gave. They did sort of the little Wordle, words that best describe the district from the employee's perspective and then from the parents. And I like the side by side with it because you kind of get a sense of, very many of the words, obviously the words that are given most often are going to, appear larger on this page. So, just the fact to me, community, and it's interesting because communication is kind of there as kind of a larger one too. But, I love the fact we've got caring in there, quality, small, is definitely another big one there, supportive. But again, just kind of gives an idea of where everyone stands and what they feel about and their perceptions, right, of the district itself. So this is the scope scorecard that I was referencing, and this really is just a nice summary of, the feedback that was received. This is predominantly through all of the surveys that were sent out. Once again, that went out to staff and then families. And so it's divided up into, 6 different areas. You see, the first one being the level of feeling informed. Second is agreement with statements about communication. You've got general perceptions, level of feeling informed, agreement with statements about communication, and then general perceptions. Just kind of looking at it, a snapshot to kind of what you see is you'll see in the first column, right, PGUSD's scores, and those are the average scores. Once again, this is on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, most positive ratings, 1 being the lowest. And you've got a sense of, sort of the average, low and high, in comparison. And that's really, they're comparing those results to sort of national results. And so that gives us sort of a means of comparison. I think for me, what stands out slide is kind of just looking at our top scores, right? You've got, in the first two categories, we got a 4 about how I can support student achievement, right? So definitely there's a higher level of people feeling informed about that. And then I trust the communication I receive from my school or department. And so I think, that's important, but you'll see the distinction there, right, between the school department versus the district. So district scored a little lower versus information on the score. And that's a good thing. That's also pretty typical, right? I mean, in the sense that you often will find people will, trust more the information that they're getting, from, they direct, if it's a teacher versus, the next level up there from the principal, the lowest, really often being the district level, because there's a level of trust, right, who they, communicate with and interact with more frequently. But again, I think that's a positive, right? The fact that, that scored high. Our lowest scores, which I, identified there as 3.3, how I can best represent the school district as an ambassador, and that really came out low. And again, that was a little bit more even from staff, right, through how they responded to many of the questions. So that was definitely one of the 5 recommendations that NSPRA identified, on how we can really empower our employees to be ambassadors for the district. The other 2, lower scores, how I can support my child's learning, and, about school and district events and programs, being notified about them. So those were, 2, lower scores. Definitely something that came through, especially in the focus interviews, was, frustration at the time about how we were notifying families about events. And so there was, a lot of sort of difficulty, I think, accessing and reading our calendars. And so we've actually, as a result of that, we made some immediate changes and got some really great feedback, in the following weeks, from that. So I think when you go to the calendar now, you can really kind of in a snapshot be able to see all events that are happening across the board at various school sites. And it has the ability now to filter. And so, just, appreciative to Director Al-Ghazi for, working closely with us on that. And again, that was directly as a result of some of the feedback and input that we got, from families. So that was important. So that's the summary there. Moving on to the next slide. So really, kind of an idea of sort of what this means. And this is really where the 5 recommendations come. And so the first one, which I've talked about already, what they are recommending is to centralize the district communication function in one single position. So they highly recommend, if possible, that we consider hiring, public relations official. Number 2 is to develop a strategic communication plan that aligns with district goals. 3, to standardize parent communication processes. 4, strengthen the use of social media by the school district. And 5, empower employees to serve as ambassadors of the school district. I included the 2, next phrases down there in the direction, just because I think they were very clear on the fact that this is intended as sort of a 3 to 5 year plan, right? They really don't recommend a district, taking this all on, immediately and going, full throttle with it. Really the idea being to pick maybe one or 2 of them, which is what we've done. And you'll see that in the next slide. But again, I also, really reference the other districts who, have recently gone through this and kind of got an idea of sort of where they started. For me, I just think that strategic communication plan is really just a great, start, because I think that's all encompassing, right? And it means that what we're doing as a district is kind of identifying what our next steps are, but also our long-term planning and how we're going to go about establishing that. So that will definitely be something that, we begin working on. And this slide, I just wanted to really highlight, on one page, identify what we've already implemented. And much of that is a result, yes, of this information, but even more before that, right, was as a result of the feedback that we received, through our LCAP input sessions. So I think just looking at this year, identifying the first one is, the messaging of our core values and the culture of we, welcome message. But again, I think that reminder of that was not just, someone in isolation working through that. Really, our core values came as a result of the feedback that we received from our community, from our students, our staff, and our families. That identification of identifying and making that strong message of who we are and what we stand for as a district, right? And establishing that, and now giving us, once again, referring to our posters, right, that is something that we've made that commitment to, that we're going to be aligning, right, all of our work, through those core values and that culture of we component. Cohesion of messaging, I think, is an important piece. And I think we've been really strong about messaging that from the beginning of the year, right? That was at our welcome back
breakfast with our staff and showing the alignment of our LCAP, the alignment of our board goals, the alignment of our strategic plan, how that aligns, with how our 3 core values are really implemented and sort of weaved into everything that we do and everything we talk about and, who we represent, right? So I think that's an important piece. The branding, posters, the certificates that we've really rolled out now, there's, those are all new, sort of traditions that, really allow us to once again to sort of, keep pointing back to and highlighting, the work we're doing that, represents that. Our welcome back board presentation, I think that was, another important, one just at the beginning of the year, again, sharing with our community, right? Our LCAP messages and how that all aligns. That's the first one. I think the second, streamline communications, really that component of centralizing the communication, really identifying that, yes, if you're looking at a single person, a single department, that, the majority of the district office communications coming through the superintendent's office, but really as a cabinet, that's something that we have really focused on as a priority. It's something that is a part of our weekly cabinet meetings, and all of the communication that goes out is something that gets their eyes on and their input as well. So, we're kind of getting that overarching department view of that. The bi-monthly superintendent's newsletters, the structure and the cadence of that, the predictability, right? Just having identified that that's going to be something that our community knows every 2 weeks that's coming out. There's going to be, a structure to how, that messaging will be provided. Safety communications, just having that more systemized. And again, I think that's come out as a result of the input we receive from our safety committees, but even just the processes that we follow, right? When we have an event, how we're communicating that to our community, to our students, to our staff. And then, I've added, just our communications already in the outreach and messaging with our, Measure B general obligation bond, right? So, again, I think that's the focus we've given to that, and even how we're, including and making that information available on our website. And the website revisions, again, I've just, I did some links on that, but again, just the fact that we now have a page where our community can go to really look up and access what the core values are. We've got our welcome message that's there and easily accessible, the calendar updates, the strategic plan alignment and access, right? That's all, we've tried to really make sure that that's accessible and well, posted and signed. And I think just in general, there are more improvements. Yes, we absolutely need to make with our website. But again, I think as far as our communications plan, that'll be something that we are able to sort of, I think, align out and plan out on, how we're doing that. But even as a cabinet, that's something that we're looking at constantly, with our various departments on, where we need to make improvements there. Safety communications. Again, I think the development of the safety committee itself, right, is huge in the sense that we now have that, the committee who can give the feedback and who we can present to and, kind of help us in growth and improvement there. Messaging related to safety, just that consistency and cohesion. And then the last one, the strategic plan development, alignment and cohesion. I think that was an important piece, just how we're, number one, gathering engagement and input from the community, having those, identified, input sessions, the development and communication of the plan, and then messaging of the why, how, and what. And really, when I talk about plan, just aligning our LCAP to our strategic plan, to our board goals, is just that's important that, there's clear cohesion, right, when we're looking at them. So really the next one, probably the most important one is what's next, right? And so, we've identified, and I wonder, would you mind refreshing, Lewis? I added, 2 more items to this page just today, which I'll obviously have to update, on the website as well. But I really want to look at 5 specific ones. I think the first 3 are, the immediate. So development of a strategic plan. I think that would be something that we will go ahead and start working on, this year in the immediate, coming weeks. Again, that's going to give us the means of ensuring that we're addressing, the other areas of focus. Revision of the district website, right? Ensuring that as we're making those changes, it's easy to navigate, it's informative, accurate, welcoming, engaging. Establishment of district advisory councils. And I think that we've started that already with our, safety committee. As a cabinet, we're talking a little about what that can look like, right? Is that something that, yes, we want to have sort of established at the district level? Do we tie that in with what we already have at our school sites, being that we're such a smaller community? So again, that'll be, forthcoming in the coming weeks on, how we want to establish that.
Ongoing feedback and community engagement via LCAP advisory sessions. I think that's something that, yes, I know we did that really well last year, and we want to make sure that that's going to be a continuation of the process every year, right? Because I think that was really well received. And then just an annual review of these 5 recommendations, and that'll be something I think that we build into our communications plan, because it is so critical. It's so important. It's got to be important that we, keep this up front and center. So we'll go ahead and calendar that then at a regular, on our board meeting calendar as, future items that we don't lose sight of, right? That we'll bring it back every year, at a typical time. Maybe it's the beginning of the year, to be sure that we're keeping it in the front. So that is it. Questions, comments?
Great. Well, first we need to go out to public comment on this particular item. Anybody online? Do we have anybody online tonight? Oh, okay. All right. Anybody in the room with public comment? Microphone button.
Hi, I appreciate you breaking down all this information and getting it all. Just as a personal, it's almost 10, so I'm so tired, but as a personal preference, I'd prefer communications from the district not live on Google Docs, like the official thing, because it seems sort of easy to spoof. Like if anyone wanted to send out a fake message, it would be easy to use that same template. And then also just in terms of the branding, which the presentation spoke about, it doesn't look coherent, and it's kind of it doesn't live within the ecosystem of the PGUSD. And I always lose track of email, and I Google things, and it'd be easier to find, by just having it on the PGUSD website. Thanks.
Appreciate the comment. Any other public comment in the room? And nobody online still? Let's go to the board.
I'll just say quickly, I mean, that was incredibly thorough. And, one thought or question will be, is there going to be a future item that we will have to act upon since this is just information? I've been thinking no at this point. I think it's going to be a bit. The second one I was just going to say is I'd love to see a few more of the low hanging fruit. I don't know if it is, but I mean, the social media was one that was brought up. That seems like that would be a really, maybe, I don't know, there's probably danger in doing it too, but I'm thinking having leadership class have potentially they could talk about homecoming, they could talk about, the games coming up, stuff like that. Just figuring out the ways to start using our resources we already have. The other one that came out was I think came up there. It wasn't as much in the review, but the event calendar. You can get the Google subscribable calendars. It could have all the sporting events. So we could say we could add that to our own calendar, just know what's coming up down the pike. So we're not having to, because I know it's on the website, but it's not in a way that's easy to ingest, if that makes sense.
Got to go to the website to
look it up.
Yeah.
Do you have a comment? Am I missing something, Lewis? Is this already done? Good.
We haven't publicized them, and maybe that's the issue, is they are all publicly available Google calendars.
Like ICS file.
That people could subscribe to with their phones if they'd like. Yeah.
That's exactly, that nailed that. So just getting that in front of people. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Hayes.
Yeah, that was on my mind too, is sometimes accessing the website, you have to know exactly where you're going in order to get where you need to go. And so sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming depending on what you've got going on, because I'm usually doing 3 other things while I'm trying to do that. So that is something. One of the other things I think about is I agree with the social media. I think that's a really interesting idea. I worry about social media, not for the reason of that it's social media, but I worry that the information, it's going to sound strange coming out, but is in too many places, and that there's not a single hub to go to that's easy. I mean, I get text messages, I get emails, and so it's nice to have a plethora of places for people to go, but as long as they're all consistent. So if someone's going to one place, they know that they can get all the information that they need about something, as opposed to having to go to social media for upcoming events and, what happened at school today is Catapult. And then I'm going to get a message on Monday and then I'm going to get a weekly update from the principal. And then it just becomes a lot of information. So if there's a way to, which is exactly what we're talking about, but if there's a way to make it so that everything we everything we access is consistent across the board. Those are my thoughts. I loved this. This is super thorough and I love that we're talking about it because brainstorming is where we're going to get some really good places. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Trustee McNary, anything?
Yeah, I'm glad we're having this presentation because I do remember when we requested it and it's kind of been a windy road to get here with a lot of bumps. And I'm happy we have it and I'm happy we have a baseline and kind of like a first, look at progress and kind of the changes and the things you've been able to implement as far as communications go. I too would be in favor of a single hub for the information. It's a lot. I know other local districts use Parent Square. So I would be open to exploring options like that might streamline just the time and energy and effort it takes to keep up with your child's school communications. I do value a comms person and I get that it's not right now. I just think that's, the art of communication is an art form and it's not easy and it's undervalued, I think, in how difficult it is to communicate with a large group of people clearly in a way that's digestible and understandable. So, and our communications department touches everything. I mean, when we hear like Trustee-elect Shamaw say, like, let's brag about the district. That's what this is, being able to show off our Ocean Guardians program or being able to show off our awesome inclusion preschool classroom. So I want us to keep talking about this and to keep focusing on it and finding the ways to highlight ourselves too, as far as, and also do the work because we've got some work to do. Yeah. I want to see our data numbers move with time. I want families to feel like they can trust what they're getting from us at least more than they are now. So that's it for me.
Thank you. It is 9:55. And I think we're going to go a little bit over, or I think we need to at least consider that. We don't have much beyond this. We have future agenda items, but I'm thinking we need to extend just a wee bit. And I'm going to make a motion, unless there's board discussion about it. Do we actually ask for public comment on extending? No. So, any other board thoughts? I'm thinking 10:15 and we can wrap it up by 10:15. I'm going to make a motion that we extend to 10:15.
I'll second the motion, hoping that we don't need until 10:15.
All right, so I made the motion. We have a second from Trustee McNary. All in favor to extend to 10:15? Say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, so we're extending to 10:15, and that's a hard deadline. We can only extend once. So moving down the line here with this particular item, Trustee Carolyn Swanson, anything to add?
Just thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we'll be done before. I should have done it 10:05.
Wow, look at that.
I like the idea of a comms person at some point in time, but again, it's like knowing what we talked about earlier tonight. It's like that's not going to happen anytime soon. I don't know if that's something where if there are districts that share, if that gets outsourced or not. I don't know. I spend a lot of time on a lot of websites, and most of the websites, whether it's an agency website or a theater venue website, most of them are not great. It's not. It's like there's so much. I think we, and some of you know, you won't be surprised to hear me say this. I don't want us out there on social media. I would like for our information to be at PGUSD.org and for us to make that the best that it is. I hate the notion that we would be using one of the things that drives social anxiety to be a platform that we use to share information. I think it's bad. I don't think we should be sending people there, encouraging them to participate in something that's really bad for all of us. So that's my thoughts about that's the only thing I really disagree with in the report. I'm glad that we took a look and we're using it to help guide us. But that's the one thing that I really hope as the board moves forward that you try to avoid that. So that's it for me. Okay, so that is information discussion. There is no board action required at that time. We're going to move on to the last item for this evening, which is future agenda items. Let's first move to public comment. Well, Dr. Adamson, do you have any?
No, any future agenda items? I do not, no.
Moving to public comment. Anybody online? Anybody in the room with suggestions for future agenda items? Seeing nobody, let's go to the board. Seeing nobody. And seeing nobody. Oh my God. Well, look at that. So, and again, there is no direction required. Our next board meeting is November 7. If you can imagine that. Everybody, I hope you all have a fabulous break. And this meeting
thought it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we are adjourned.